Oh, hi. Sorry, John and I were chatting.
Is that the Earth? Yes, it must be. It's got
Yeah,
lights.
I'm in space. I decided I wanted an interesting background for this meeting.
I like it. It kind of makes you look like you're out in space there someplace.
So John is in the meeting too. Can you guys hear him?
Hi, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, John.
Who has an extra pen? I had one in my hand and I lost it. Good woman, thank you.
Wow.
Okay, so what we have is, meeting's called to order at 6:03. And present are members John Calabrese, Chuck Funk, Cindy. What else do we have? Looking up here. And Christina, did I mention you? Christina Davis. And guest is Jim Rupert. Thank you
Paul
so
will be
much for
late.
coming. And I'm sorry,
Paul will be late.
Paul will be late. Okay. And Christine. Thank you. So you all should have received a packet. You don't have yours either.
I don't have a packet.
Good God. Feel like my bullet now. All right, so you don't have the background information here on this. Oh, sure. You'll get another one. Okay.
I don't have it either.
My
Sorry.
lesson learned. We will apparently be providing printed copies when we come to use. As well. All right, so let's see, John, do you have the packet?
I'm calling it up now.
Very good.
I have reviewed it.
Okay, let me know when you have it up.
It's grown quite a bit in the last few weeks.
I couldn't quite hear you.
It's grown quite a bit in the last few weeks.
Yes, we wanted to make sure, well, for one thing, we didn't have all the requests in before, and not all of the requests had information that we needed. So, hopefully what we have now is at least adequate to get us through the basic stuff here. So, one of the things we did, during the time between this and our last meeting is we asked for prioritization of the items that the different departments have. Town projects down below is another kind of category, but certainly within public works, we did that. Within the fire department, we did that, and we started with the priorities being those initiatives that are already in flight. And if you look down, Ashford School has provided some information on what they're looking for with their priorities, if I have it correct. Thank you. And we certainly see the 4 million from the roof replacement build. And then down in town projects, we have repairs and upgrades, senior center door replacement. We've increased that amount because we got 2 more estimates. And, you know, John can ask, I know you might have some questions about this one. Because we felt that the first estimate might not have been reliable, and that was about 7,800 or 7,900. And so, Casey went out and he got 2 more estimates. Kit, our senior center director, had gotten the initial estimate. And, I felt more comfortable going with what Casey had. So we put, what is actually the highest estimate for town, the senior center door replacement. There was one that was at around 16,000. But we'll explain that later on as to what these are. So I think I'm gonna try and take it from the top, if that works for everybody, and if people have questions or concerns, they need to voice them. So looking at public works, road resurfacing was proposed as 205,000, as we've done each year. And we treated that as a priority because that must be done. Dump truck lease is already in flight, so that's the next one. That's 44,000 for the this upcoming year and the year after. the wheeled excavator lease.
Sorry, Catherine, can I just ask a question? So that when you say it's already in flight, that means we've already acquired
Approved
this
it.
dump truck, we're just paying the financing?
We are, if you look at them and they say lease,
Oh, right.
we have leased them, and, what we're doing are payments on the lease, and at the end of the lease, it'll be paid for in its entirety.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. And yes, interrupt me if I'm not being clear about anything.
So can I just point out that if you have, I don't know if you can see this.
You can look at that and I think they can see you.
Yeah, so on this chart, what we have are under the adopted,
John has it.
which is the first column. Those are the things that are actually in place today that we're already paying for, but they're also reflected in what we have to pay moving forward.
On these lease items.
Right.
Yes. Okay, so in terms of the wheeled excavator, just, looking in this packet. Does anybody have any questions about that? Casey's here, he can respond to them.
That's something we already have
Yep.
that we're dealing with. That's already.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Yeah, we got it there. The next is a 2024 F-350 crew cab pickup. And if I understand correctly, this one is pretty much a must-have. So Casey, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. Our pickup right now that we're using, that's an online plow route. It's an 08, 154,000 miles. It's time. It really, really needs to be replaced. I just had to put, unfortunately, it should have gone 1 or 2 years ago. I just had to put probably $3,000 into it, 2 batteries, alternator, starter, serpentine pulley belt. It was too bad. Unfortunately, we didn't do this a year ago, but I understand we have a lot of stuff to buy, so I totally get that. But, and we're doing the right thing, the purchases we've made, but this just happens to be one that I feel slipped through the cracks. So,
What's that truck used for?
it's the red one with the silver body, so we use that for a lot of, run around. It's a plow truck.
Yes.
It's our fuel truck, so we use that to fuel up our equipment when it's out. It's got a transfer tank. Yeah, it's definitely a runaround truck,
How's the frame on it?
Frame is already been welded upon. It's got a couple bad spots. It's not a good situation. It's
Any
not
other-
completely gone. It's not like trash, but
In other words, it's still drivable, but it's
yeah.
not gonna last long. Any other questions about this particular one?
Are we able to sell?
I was going to look into trading it in, but obviously, yeah, we would sell it. We would just auction it off. That's what we've done in the past. There is a bit of interest on this truck already. I would be like, oh, you're getting rid of that? Let me know.
I couldn't quite hear then.
There is some interest already. People saying, oh, if you're getting rid of that, let me buy it. I prefer to just trade it in, just so I don't have to deal with it, And if they give us a good price, obviously.
Any other questions about this one?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Christina. So you said this one has a plow. Would you be retaining the plow and putting it on the new truck, or does the plow go with the package, if you know what I'm saying?
We could go different directions with that. If the money wasn't there, we wanted to, we could just use the plow we have. I just have to get the plow frame. And it's there in the estimate. It's sort of an option there. He gave us 2 plows as an option. If we want to designate the money, we can. I'm pretty much open to either decision on that. The lift gate I'd really like to get, you know, we use this truck a lot of times, we're putting our mixer on the back, and I'd really like to get a lift gate to, you know, start saving on the guys' backs.
One back injury will more than pay for the work.
Yeah.
Good point.
What about the pins and bushings on the plow? I mean, if it's 2008, they gotta be worn out.
Well, we've bought some plows over the years, that
So
original.
it's not the original. plow.
Right, exactly. Somehow we've gotten in pretty good shape with the plow, although it does seem like you buy a new truck. If we can spend the money, it would be nice to get a new plow. 100% want it, just if we're gonna pinch pennies here, I'm open to that.
But the transfer tank, you should be able to move over.
We can move the transfer tank. Yeah, and like I said, we've never had a lift gate. We've also never had a utility body, are things, so we'll have toolboxes on this truck. And this will be a great truck for us, you know.
Big fan of toolboxes on the truck.
Surprising that we never had a utility body, is it not?
Right.
And also crew cab, because we're required to meet many regulations to go to our certified flagger training, OSHA 10, all these things we have to go to. And we're all taking 2 dump trucks or 2 pickups and 3 or sometimes, you know, so if we get a crew cab, we can all get in there and go.
Any other questions? Okay, moving down to the Kubota L47 tractor. Can you elaborate on that one?
Sure. So our parks and recs fields, many times what we do, it works. We borrow the school's tractor. But a lot of times Mike, he is working on his fields. And we're trying to work on the field. So he's like, hey guys, can we get that back? You know, and we're trying to, you know, mix it into all the things we have to do. A lot of times we're not, you know, we're battling. So I'm really happy it's worked. The school has lent us their tractor, but in order to take care of like the ball field, you really need a York rake. You know, you need that small tractor to go on the field and get those fields done. And it would really be nice to shape our fields. They're kind of pathetic. And this year was a particularly bad year. The volunteers did it, which is good. We love to have volunteers, but you know, it didn't get done the way it should. So this spring, we're gonna have a real hard time. So those 2 ball fields. Also, we have probably approximately maybe 20 acres of different fields between senior center, the fields at the park, of bush hogging that really needs to be done. I've been the guy in the roadside mower. So what we've done is we've mowed them with our roadside mower, but it is really challenging because you're taking up 18 feet with a 4-foot mower. If I feel like if we could do it with a regular bush hog and a tractor, we could do this much more efficiently. And also, particularly would be able to use this tractor to do a lot of narrow runoffs. We use our mini excavator, our new big wheeled excavator most of the time, but there are times when we could just go out with a small tractor and just hit these runoffs real quick. And I think we could be more efficient.
Any questions about that one? Thank you. Okay, compact loader, Volvo 170.
We could go back 1 second on that tractor. Are they available on a lease program?
Did you say?
Lease program.
Oh, on a lease program,
Ah,
you know, same way we're buying some of the other things.
yes. thank you.
They, I would think so. I went to Can Tractor initially. The other thing is I'd be open to looking for a used one. There's quite a few on the market and they're reasonably priced. I've been looking, there's some anywhere, this one, what is the price, 50,000 on this? And I've seen them used, but not a lot of hours for like 25,000. Pretty, they look like good deals to me. But, you know, I didn't know how everyone else would feel about buying a used one.
I would like to see a couple of used quotes, because quite honestly, I know the Kubota line pretty well. They hold up, particularly if it's low hours.
Yeah, they do.
That'll be fine at half the price.
Yeah,
Great, can you get those?
yeah.
So, and then the other thing with that is the equipment that is needed for the tractor to be useful.
Right.
So it's,
This quote had a York rake and a bush hog.
right, so I
For
would
the 50.
assume that if you can find the tractor, you're still needing to
Right,
purchase
right.
the other two items,
Yeah,
But those aren't that expensive.
right?
If you can find them.
yeah,
Well, even buying those brand new, that's not killer.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it would be the package to get what you're needing. I certainly wouldn't have any objection to a used tractor, but it needs to have the stuff you need.
Right, right.
Yeah, but,
I
but
mean, at minimum, we need a York rake and a bush hog. That's what I put in for just to start. And then a drag box. I mean, it's
Right.
never ending. That's another reason why I'd like to have it. It just opens up a whole avenue of options. You know, and just in general.
But that makes sense, because the tractor itself is gonna probably be in great shape. It's the equipment attachments that get the wear and tear.
Yeah,
So if you get the new equipment, I mean, the new attachments, I think that make much more sense. And you might save yourself 15, 20 grand.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
yeah,
Okay, so Casey, you're gonna pursue that?
yeah, I will do that.
Okay, salt shed replacement. This has actually been on here, I think, for a couple of years. So can you elaborate on that one?
Yeah, a huge problem that we have is just holding a large quantity of salt. We can't do that. We hold so little amount, you know, I basically order 3 loads at a time. And it takes a week to get them. So sometimes we're in danger of like not even having everything we need, because they take so long to bring them out. And most facilities have, like the state pit that you all probably see down on 89. You know, that holds, you know, probably 500 yards in there, you know? So they can just hold a good amount, and we just can't, you know? So it's just very limiting to our capacity. It's just very small.
So I'd have a question about whether we have any sort of backup partnership, like with Wellington or Eastford, or like, you know, hey, you know, we're running out, we need a
Yeah,
little time,
yeah.
can we borrow some from you guys, we'll replace it, kind of thing.
Yeah, so I've been on the crew for 22 years, and we've done that about 3 times probably. And generally, we've gone to Wellington, and then we've gone to the state.
Okay, right,
They bailed us out of a couple of situations, but
Yeah.
Wellington, they're another town. They don't really have big capacity salt shed either.
Yeah, okay.
So,
And you don't want bailing out to be the norm.
right,
Have we applied for any grant funds for this? Because this is perfect for a LoCIP grant.
Thank you.
We've applied for twice for stick for it. And we turned down twice.
You also get, Ashford also gets $48,000 a year in LoCIP entitlement funds.
Hmm.
You don't have to spend that every year. You could bank that. You could essentially look at, you could leave that essentially and not spend it and build up a reserve.
Can I just ask a question about
You
that?
can ask as many questions as you want.
When do we ever have a situation where we don't use all of it?
Well, I will tell you that I haven't used a bit of mine in the last 4 years
How about Ashford?
because I'm saving it for a project. Ashford currently is expecting $48,562 on March 1st.
How come we don't know that?
What's that?
Where would we get that? Where would that, did you get a
On the-
notification?
no.
Is that the thing I looked at today?
This is you usually you should get an email
We got it.
from.
And that's the thing we
I
looked
did
at
too.
today. I'm just making sure it was the same
You should
thing.
get an email every year
Yeah.
from DAS. And, you know, if I can tell you this year, I will have, I don't know, a little over $200,000.
Quit your bragging.
Well,
What's that fund again, Jim?
Let's loose up entitlement funds,
Well,
but I actually get
CIP,
less money a
it's
year.
Local-
actually.
Local capital.
So we have
improvement.
50,550.
Yeah, that's gonna get
We
updated.
get
here.
every year.
Right, so that's part of our funding that's already calculated into our 5-year capital.
Right.
So that's, so when you look at the funding side, I just wanted to make sure we
The
were all
next
talking
page.
about the same thing.
Okay,
We're just not banking it. We could decide to say, oh, this LoSiP funding is gonna go for a salt shed. We could do that, but we're actually using
you're
it
actually using it over.
for all
We
this
usually
stuff.
use it to offset roads.
Correct.
Right. I think that's the, again. that's
So
the
it's
big
just a different approach. I
Right.
see what you're
And,
saying.
and maybe less, your roads are different than our roads.
You have more roads than I do.
Wow,
I have,
good to know.
I have 15 square miles, you're about 42 square miles. So
Oh.
I have less roads.
We have what, 64 miles?
Yeah, we have 42 miles of road.
Thank you.
So it's very different, but, you know, we can store, in our salt shed, we can store about 500 tons.
How about us?
Which would be great. No.
We can just go steal salt and pump.
It's a long drive.
They'll never
Yes.
know.
Good, yes, could we borrow some from you? when we need it?
Absolutely. That is not a problem. But, you know, it seems to me that, you know, as a capital project, it's a great capital project. And it's been a few years since I've been up to Public Works to see the salt shed, but even then, it was not amazing.
Skipped over that.
But it seems to me that it is something that's ripe for a grant. I know a couple of towns in the last couple of years have also done, they've gotten grants from the federal government for salt sheds. Winchester, I think, got one last year.
Okay,
So you could look that up.
Okay.
That was the town of Winchester, and I think it was about the same amount, and if you were for the, so, I mean, it's a conversation with your state representatives and talking with them, and this is the time of year to be applying
very good.
for those federal grants. And your match, I think, on those is 20%.
The other thing I would point out is that the salt shed is not in this year's proposal. It's in next year's. It's still a future consideration.
We keep moving it over.
Correct.
Did I miss something in this list?
Yeah, compact loader Volvo L70.
Oh, yeah. My apologies. So, Casey, you want to speak to that?
Sure. Right now, our loader has about 7,000 hours on it. It's, oh wait, I may have had the wrong year on there, on the initial sheet that I filled out, but it is an 08. It's still in good shape. The great thing about the loader that we have is a JCB 425. It has a Cummins motor, which is a really good motor. It has a major issue with the glass. The way they built the frame for the cab, they have steel channel, and they've just put the glass, the curved glass, into with just caulking. It's safe and all that, but what happened is that metal channeling has rusted and expanded. It's a major design flaw. And the windshield replacement is like $3,000. It's a pretty expensive fix. It's just a design flaw. For that reason alone, I wanted to go with a Volvo, go to a different make. And they make a really good machine.
Can we get trade-ins on things like that?
Trade ours in, yeah, and our machine's worth quite a bit.
Mhm.
I'd like to keep it and have it be our yard loader, because that's what we did last time. We kept our Volvo loader,
Mhm.
and we could get rid of that one. So we don't need 3 loaders. But a loader is between trucks and the loader, that is the foundation of your equipment for public works. The loader is extremely important to us. So I just wanted to stay on top of it and put in for it because I'd really like to stay on top of that. I don't want to fall behind and have a jalopy.
Yes,
machine.
John.
Casey, other than the windshield, anything else wrong with it?
Unfortunately, we had a problem with the brakes and I just put $3,000 into that. So that money's there. So that's pretty good. It's in good shape. Aside from the windshield, that's really about, fenders are starting to rust out. There's not a whole lot.
How's the backup loader doing?
Backup loader is not in good shape. Buckets rusted through. It's in bad shape.
Because typically loaders that size and vintage, you'll get 10,000 hours out of without a problem.
Yeah. The old loader is at 12,000. So it's just about ready to fall apart. And the JCB is 7,000 hours. It's getting along there. The pins are starting to slop out a little bit. It would be a nice one to replace while it's still worth some money. While it's still worth, for us to keep as a loader in our pit and everything.
Any other questions about the compact loader? Okay. I guess moving down to reval. Reval is, another one of those in-flight or ongoing initiatives. It's my understanding that these numbers still stand. We'll change that. So the fire department, and I'm sorry, Paul.
Sorry, Catherine, this is, forgive my ignorance, but I don't know anything about what this could be referring to. What is I know we reval our properties every 4 or 5 years, but is that related to that or what is this?
That's what this is.
So paying the company that comes in and revaluates the property values.
As far as I know, yes.
Yes.
And we have a contract with them.
We have a contract.
Okay. It might be helpful in this form to say the name of the company, just so, I don't know, I feel like it would give people a better sense of what that is.
I think it's equality, I think.
Yeah, it is
Right.
equality.
And I think just including the name, it would also just like register more when they hear from that company, like, oh yeah, like, hopefully help people understand what's going on.
All 6 people that are gonna read this?
You know what, Chuck? There's going to be a lot of people reading this, and I think they're going to
Okay.
take it very seriously.
All right, perfect. I
actually,
like your enthusiasm.
Actually, over time, and I'm
Yeah, I
not sure
think-
how that contract runs, I just know that we've got this in here for now, but over time, that company could change.
Well, right, because you go out to bid again,
Yeah, we go on to it again.
right?
And Chuck, if you're a chess player, I think you just were checkmated by Christine, so.
Perfect, good. I would be glad to serve that purpose.
Okay, like I said, I'm sorry Paul isn't able to be here right now. The fire department, again, there's already a lease in play for the 74-250. Fire truck, the replacing the ET 420 for 575,000. That's the proposed estimate. It would be a lease purchase expenditure, much like we've done with the other ones. And
Just to ask a question on that. So am I correct that when we actually calculate the expenses, let's say we say, yes, we're going to get this fire truck, the expense for fiscal year 25 would probably be something on like $100,000. It wouldn't be the full 575.
That we get the loan from calculates
yeah,
the payment.
the bank we get the loan from calculates. Also, the first payment, if you will, we
pay up front.
There's an upfront cost.
It's not 575 grand in that
No.
fiscal year.
No, but it's more than it is in the succeeding years.
Got it.
Okay. And by the way, if I could say more on this, this is because the fire truck that they have will be not only, I'm gonna call it obsolete, but it will also not be, I'm gonna call it street legal.
It won't be
In
in
2 years.
compliance with FPA regulations, because it'll be
Right.
over 20 years. So,
So the
Are you
plan,
asking, are you asking me to comment?
huh?
Are you asking me to comment?
No, I'm just telling you.
Because as long as it stays in service, it's okay.
is that true?
It is.
Say that again. I'm sorry, I missed that.
What he said was as long as the truck stays in service, it's okay. That's an interest, we didn't hear that when we heard from Paul.
You never will.
I see, that makes sense.
So
What do you mean
if
by
I,
in
yeah,
service?
So
what do you know that we're not hearing?
well, I'll relate it to something that you know, right? A house was built in 1985. It was compliant at the time it was built in 1985. It's been in continuous use without a change since 1985.
Ah.
Does that mean it's because it's not up to Connecticut building code today that you have to take it out of service? No.
Yeah, so I was under the impression that there's something a little different with the firehouse. I don't have to have that house inspected by
Right.
anybody. But
The
our fire
trucks
trucks have to be
be.
inspected and approved. I think it's annually.
And don't they have to meet NFPA standards? And NFPA says that you have to replace over 20 years.
It's a recommendation.
FDA recommendation, you said FDA?
It's in the
And if,
NFPA, National Fire Protection Association.
Recommendation, not requirement, is what I'm hearing. As long as it's kept in service.
So Jim, how would we, and you might, I don't know if you know the answer to this. How would we get a truly neutral party to weigh on this particular type of conversation? Because clearly the firehouse has its agenda. We have our agenda. We also want them to have what they
I'm all
need.
for replacing this truck, but I'm all for replacing this truck next year when you get rid of this other $74,000
Well,
payment.
we're
It
not-
takes 2 years to get the truck.
We're
I
not,
understand.
if we, the way you understand it, if we order the truck when the budget passes, we're not gonna see the truck for 2 years anyway.
We just paid for a fire truck.
Right.
And if this is what the fire truck is, that's an amazing price.
That's the
Yeah.
price we got from our last supplier as a ballpark.
It must be a lot more now.
I just paid $875,000 for a fire truck.
Thank you.
It's probably got more bells and whistles than what we look for here in Ashford.
Okay.
You know, this is gonna see, the one we bought, this one's probably an exact replacement for ET 420, which is a 2 or 3 person cab. Ours is a 6-person cab with all kinds of crazy stuff.
We don't
right?
have 6 persons.
Right, I mean, that's part of the problem, we don't have 6 butts that fit in the cab of a fire truck, but.
You were asking about an independent
So-
person. I'm actually looking at someone who is providing some,
Mhm.
I'm gonna call it independent
Yep.
information.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, but you wanna verify it from somebody.
Yeah, so
Who do we do then?
And I'm trying to think about how to answer that question. I don't know off the top of my head, but I will dig up some information. The other thing I will tell you is that we saved almost $200,000 on our fire truck by buying it through HGAC. So that may be something that you look into. That's
Who is it?
HGAC. It's a buying consortium, Houston, Galveston, something or other. And
So
they
when
also
you
do.
buy through a consortium like that, it obviously is nowhere near here. What do you do? Where does the truck actually come from and where does it go for service?
Same place.
Okay,
Comes from the same places that all the fire trucks are
Oh,
built
okay.
out in the Midwest.
So you're saying your middleman, using this different middleman.
So
would be
it's
better?
a buying consortium which gives everybody bigger buying power, right?
yeah.
It's, Houston, Galveston, so it started in Houston and Galveston, Texas. But for a small fee, you can become a member of that buying consortium. I would suggest that the school look into it too, because there's things that the school got. You may be able to buy things off of it. The two that we particularly buy off of pretty regularly are HGAC and Sourcewell. But we did save almost $200,000 buying a fire truck through HVAC.
That all they do fire trucks?
No, they do all kinds of stuff. You could
Stuff
schedule,
like what he would need?
yes, he may be able to buy some of this equipment through the buying consortium. Absolutely.
This isn't the consortium that Joe, got signed into, when I was here, when I was first selectman before.
I'm not sure, the
I-
source, the loader is under Sourcewell, which you mentioned in the
Right.
same breath.
It
Right.
might have been
So-
Source, yeah, Source.
Sourcewell is also a great one. So it's Houston Galveston Area Council is what it is. And one of the things that they have great buying power with is fire trucks.
Good to know
So
and good to follow up on.
Catherine, with the fire truck, it would seem to me
Yeah,
that what would be really a lot more useful in here is if we could determine what the a lease agreement would look like. So that instead of just having 575,000, which we all understand, it could be 74,250, and that would make a difference.
No, because the last truck was 3 something,
Well, whatever it is,
320
right,
something.
whatever the
So
number
we have
is.
to, we have to wait, we just got enough information to be able to talk to the bank.
Right, but you
Yeah.
gotta,
And have
you gotta be
them-
able, you gotta be able to put a down payment on it to order it.
Right, we have,
that's exactly what we're talking
Right.
about.
Right.
we have to be able to let the bank, give the bank as much information as we can, and they will figure
Okay.
out over 4 years, 5 years.
So before this particular thing goes to voters, we will have a number in there.
We should, yes.
Okay,
So what you're really looking for is the down payment number in this
Right.
budget, and then a
Mhm.
lease purchase, from then on forward.
Well, I did dig out the down payment on the truck that we bought in 2020.
Yes,
Okay, and the payment would pay now is 74,250. In 2020 for the down payment, we paid 69 and change.
That's not horrible.
Yeah,
So you're probably looking at somewhere close to 100,000.
yeah,
that's where she was going.
yeah, okay.
What was the name of the organization that regulates the fire trucks? You said something about NF something or other?
National Fire Protection Association. NFPA.
Thank you.
So
Okay, so our next,
probably a good place to have a conversation with that is with Kerma. I would start with that, because here's what the issue is. You don't have to replace the fire truck. And I think what the chief is probably saying is, okay, our fire truck doesn't meet current NFPA standards, so we're concerned about liability if somebody gets hurt driving that truck or trying to operate that truck in a fire.
yeah,
I suspect that's, I don't know Paul that well, but I
Well,
suspect that's what he's.
It's not only Paul, because it goes back, I'm sure, to Richard, because I remember when we had to get rid of something. It was because of the NFPA regulation, and it was 20 years, and Richie had a whole schedule of vehicles that we had to replace and when.
Well, you should always know when you're replacing a fire truck or a dump truck, or, that should always be on your radar. That's the whole purpose of having a 5 or a 10-year plan.
that's right.
I mean, every year that you're replacing a school bus, that's okay, that's so that you keep your school buses 10 years old or less.
Well, and actually, we're kind of looking at that for our, public works, looking at what we've got for all of our vehicles, all the ages, how they use, usage. And looking to do that very kind of a thing, because, they come up like this in kind of a onesie
Right,
situation.
so that's what scares me about, trying to buy all of this equipment in the same year for the Public Works Department. I understand the need. But
That dies in the same
But
year.
that means that, you're creating that cycle where instead of spending $50,000 or $70,000 a year, you're back spending 300,000 every 10 years. And I think that's what you're trying to avoid.
Right. Okay, so again, next steps on this one is to check out these companies. Buying consortiums, right? And ask Kerma about the liability concern. and find out if NFPA is a recommendation, not a requirement. And what they were saying, right?
Right.
The other just question I have, or maybe an observation, is I'm pretty sure with the last new truck that we got a few years ago, the truck that was replaced, we sold to a community in Pennsylvania. So
Chris,
West
that was
Virginia.
West Virginia.
West Virginia. Okay. So
Chris,
but
Chris can speak to that.
but so it's good enough for some other community, but it's not good enough for us. You know, that's sort of why I think it's important to ask these questions about.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
She just said if it's good enough for another community and it's not good enough for us, that's her kind of a question.
Because there are some communities that reply, if you looked at the pictures of the Anawalt Fire Department, it looks like a two-car garage.
Right.
And that's the best they can do for them. A $32,000 or $34,000 truck was like manna from heaven. And they can get away with it, and they desperately needed to replace because they cover. You have to remember the fire departments in rural areas like that. They cover something like 75 square miles of country back roads. So they need something more reliable than probably the 25, 30, 40-year-old truck they have. So to them, like I said, it's a godsend. They were so excited.
And we had didn't we have the same situation with buses, school buses? We sold them to somebody.
No, I don't think we
No,
ever
was that
sold a
down?
bus as a bus.
Okay.
I'll just remind you that we had a 1974 Mack in service until we gave it to the Public Works Department. It was way past 20 years.
That's okay, Danny.
Do you remember the map we sold to Georgia?
That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, we sold it to a little fire department in Georgia.
Right.
So now imagine a truck out in Danny's HX field for at least 10 years that they pulled out of there to put in service in the fire department.
So 1990, the Kenworth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's a little tricky to just have them on a schedule, because we kind of, like the white, it's an 89 white GMC, we took it in and we put like, I think it was like 50,000 into hydraulics, and so now it's like, oh, it's tricky, you know, to get it on like a normal schedule, because that one would not apply. Even though it's an
And I
89.
would think something too with trying to get it laid out to create some kind of a general schedule would be to keep track of what are the repairs that we're having to do as we go along.
Right.
And when it gets to the point of, you know, this is ridiculous, then we
And
have something that proves it.
that doesn't happen in a year. Creating that schedule happens, it's an evolution over time.
Right,
Yeah.
But you gotta start somewhere, if that's the idea.
yeah,
Yep.
and I think
I
that's
agree.
very good. So, okay, so that was the fire truck. Now going on to where are we here? Fire Department Station 20 roof repair. We are still getting information on this as to how extensive the damage is, and some other follow-ups. So we don't have enough here to really get into it tonight. But I think it's McClintock, or was that just a really good movie?
No, the Clinton.
No, that's the name of a roofing company.
Okay, so they're going out there on Friday. And what they'll be doing is they'll be inspecting it and then coming up with an estimate for, is it repair, is it replace, what is it? So that we have that information.
And I think I tried to, you know, share this with you guys the last time, I think through John or email or both. And I'm not sure the message ever got through. My thinking is this: worst case scenario is you replace that one side of the roof. Right, the roof is only like 18, 19 years old. It's a 30-year roof. It doesn't make sense to me to replace the roof on the entire fire station.
Wow, what, I think Paul was saying it was a 20-year roof. Somebody was saying it was 20.
There's no way we put a 20-year roof on that building.
No,
Wouldn't
it's
they?
either a 30 or a 40.
Right.
Okay,
I think it's at least a 30-year roof.
good.
I had
What were you
delivered
saying, John?
with Catherine, Jim.
I'm sorry?
I had talked about that with you, Catherine, when we spoke
Yes.
last.
Yeah,
And by the way, McClintock was a very good movie as well.
It was, I agree. So and that, to me, that's the worst case scenario is they remove the panels. You know, that side of the roof gets repaired and then the panels go back.
Stop for a second. They assessed Greenbank sent somebody out. Because Greenbank funded the solar installation to some extent, and they sent somebody out. And the issue where the solar panels are, where that leak is. What was it?
I think I can clarify, when they put the solar panels down, they, did not, what's the term?
Hit the rafters.
Well, that's the second part. The first part is when they put the solar panels down, when they did in some of the places, they
Oh.
created areas that would be a leak, and that was the solar side of it, okay? Then there was, I don't know if it was from the roof installation or from the solar, or whatever, where the nails that they put in didn't hit the trusses. And so they created holes in the roof that the water is going through. Now,
So it's two separate.
it was two different things, and it's kind of like one sounded like it was just for solar, and the other one sounded like it was the roof itself.
So so it sounds to me like what happened was when they put the sheathing on the roof, when the structure was built, maybe they had some nails that didn't hit the mark,
Right,
and they're coming up through the surface of the shingle over time with the sun and the weather beating on it.
and is that some of what we also have with the school roof? Same kind of thing where the nails are coming out? No?
No,
Okay,
no, I don't think so. But that would change my opinion.
okay,
Okay, so if that's the case, and that's happening over the entire roof, then that would probably mean that the entire roof would need some level of repair or replacement.
so I think what's really needed is to get that real assessment on Friday. So that we have that information to work with, so we can tell how bad it really is and what it seems to be caused by.
Yeah, but Jim, on that issue, wouldn't that also be a warranty?
What, on the roof?
Well, it wouldn't be a roof warranty issue.
Actually, we found a 1-year warranty on the roof.
1 year? I'm sorry? We only have
For what that's worth.
Right.
Well, the manufacturer of the shingle guarantees the shingle against defect as long as it's installed properly over an appropriate substrate, but that's clearly not the case,
Right,
or doesn't seem to be the case.
all right.
Well, do we have a case against the contractor is my point.
I don't know that I suspect that the statute of limitations is long past.
Okay.
You probably have a case for the poor solar installation.
And to that point, apparently the solar installers have come back out and done some plugging of holes or whatever, some kind of repair. I don't know how good it is. All I know is that it's leaked badly enough that it brought down a fixture in the fire station that luckily didn't hit a truck. And that some of the wood has rotted. So let's find out exactly what the extent of this is, and
You may also want to have a conversation with Kerma and have them look at it.
We already talked to them.
already,
We're waiting for
Chris has been on
determination
this.
from them.
Okay.
If they've been back out to repair, that's a little bit of an admission of guilt. So,
They didn't, what's his name?
you know,
Said they didn't repair, they
well,
temporarily plugged the holes.
that's not.
just to prevent it from leaking
That's why we
further.
thought it was important to have
The leak-
somebody come out and look at the whole thing.
The leaks were bad enough that they did something. Okay, so action on that is to, get that assessment and then determine whether or not it's replacing one side will solve it, replacing the whole thing. Find out what will actually solve it, make sure we have that estimate.
And they'll give you an estimate along with their assessment, I assume.
That's what we want.
That's what
Who's meeting with Dan?
I don't remember.
I'm sorry,
Who's meeting with McClintock?
Paul won't be there.
Paul won't be there, but he's got 2 other guys.
Yeah,
I assume paid.
We can find
for
that
the-
out.
Is that something, Catherine, that you would join in on or no?
I've climbed up on a roof before. I'd be glad to, if people.
I just think questions have to be answered because there's a number of questions here. I'm not sure, Dan has to have some direction, am I looking at just fixing the immediate problem? Am I looking at a bigger picture? What are you asking me to
We
look
asked
at?
Paul to present the options of, does this need to be replaced? Does it need to be repaired in sections? How much is it gonna cost?
Right,
Um,
the various options, right?
and, we have had him do stuff on this building
Mhm.
where we've had leaks
Mhm.
and he doesn't really need a lot of direction, he's not.
So
Yeah.
I would like to add something. It gives me no comfort to know that the same solar company that did that roof did this one. Put the solar up here and put it on our
Senior
senior
housing.
housing.
Right,
As it is on this particular roof, the way they put it on, the snow and ice slide off onto whoever is coming in the downstairs door.
That's okay.
Is it the same
So,
company at the school?
Not the best
Or no?
design.
Or we haven't
Okay,
got that.
moving down to
Can't
engine
remember what the
bay.
name is. I have to look to. I'll let
Air
you know.
circulation fans. And on this one, I gotta think about this. This isn't for fresh air. This is to take the heat. So
This is to move the heat down to the bay floor.
anybody have any questions on this?
Probably should have happened when the building was built.
When they built it?
Yeah, probably could have been, yeah, when they built the building.
It's amazing what we found that when they built this building and that building that they didn't think of or didn't do. Sometimes penny wise and pound foolish doesn't work.
yeah, it's good to have an independent HVAC engineer do the design, and that's different than the installers. It's
Oh, yeah.
somebody
Mhm.
designs the whole system and then, okay, you put it out to bid. and
The,
then-
the installers basically go, what did you want? Just gonna put it there.
Right,
Okay. So those are also listed in priority order, if I have it straight. And then now with the Ashford School. So I can't remember in this packet how many of these we have in the packet.
Everything should be here.
Okay, so we've got the AC
The three,
replacements and air exchangers. Okay, for 30,600, 306.
The air handling units, we have not gotten the quote, the company has not got back to us on the
That's
price
this
of
one?
that.
Air handling.
Yeah,
So how did we get to the 30,000?
well, the 30,000 is the AC units. If you look at the request that we put in.
All right, so I'm looking down the list. These are the requests.
Yeah, yep,
Okay, so the one you're referring to is this first one? Or
yep. And right in the request that we wrote, 30,306.
not? Yes.
AC units plus the to be determined air handling units. We have not gotten that.
Do they have to be put in at the same time?
There are already air handling units up there and all we're looking to do is take those and replace them. So we're not putting anything new up there. There are no new for the roof purposes. We're not looking to do anything but replace what's already there.
Understood. So this estimate has to go up, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, to include the air handlers.
And we don't have any idea how much that is at this point. Do we know
Company
when
has
we
not.
will know?
We keep reaching out to them.
Well, reach out to somebody else.
Yeah, we could do that.
I think it's probably time to do that, because if we want to, if we want this considered for this coming year's budget, plan, then we have to have the information.
Cindy, is this the thing that the state is asking us to deal with? Is that?
No, this is just our, there are a series of air handling units that draw air throughout the building.
Yeah.
Fan
And no one has
systems.
told us that we need to fix them or replace them, right?
No, it's just Mike keeps track of what has been replaced and what needs to be replaced. There are about
That's good.
15 currently that need, 8 have been replaced.
So we've had this conversation over the last 2 years when we've been discussing replacing the roof. The time to replace these is when the roof is replaced, because especially with an AC unit, if the curbing on the roof has to change, we don't wanna be cutting into a brand new roof a year from now to change an AC unit or. So I will say that I'm just disappointed that we're finding about this now, because I've asked the questions personally multiple times. And I know that you were not involved in the beginning, so it's not a you thing, this is not a reflection on you. But, this is a question, I think John would echo this, we've asked this question multiple times. This should have been planned as part of the roof project.
So Jim, out of curiosity, you've asked whom? Who have you asked? I know you,
School personnel.
okay,
School,
Yeah.
yes,
Alright.
definitely school personnel.
Alright.
I
Is
went
this
went
thing
back
that
in
we,
3 meetings, Jim, and we've covered it at least 3 times in meetings.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I went back into my meeting notes and we've covered it at least 3 times. I just stopped going back because I didn't think we'd have to talk about more than 3 times it being talked about.
Is this something that we should be putting in front of the architect that we have for the roof to say, do you have any sense of what the impact could be here?
Well,
Because we got the architect working now.
it probably could have been, and we may still have the opportunity to roll it into our bond for the roof, and it may qualify for reimbursement.
absolutely. That was the first thing that came to my mind was this should be part of the roof project. This is just like a no-brainer.
And right now, the state is handing out grant money for HVAC work.
That would be a separate, yeah, but that would be it's a separate grant.
That
Yeah.
particular grant is a separate grant, but my point is, this is a focus, right? Since COVID, this has become a focus of the State Board of Education, is indoor air quality. And if you can tie this project back to indoor air quality, it's originally when I saw this, I thought it was the required assessment. Right, and we've known about the required assessment for at least 2 years, and you've got 1 more year to get that required assessment done. Right, so you're budgeting that for that somewhere in this next year to get that done.
Yep.
Because you have to, because otherwise you
Yep.
won't be eligible for grant money down the road.
Correct.
So this is something, we're behind the 8 ball on this issue, but we need to get in front of it. So I think one of the things that you could do, Cindy, is to reach out, to the State Board of Education and find out, if we do a quick assessment here of these pieces of equipment and find that we have to replace them, can we roll them into the roofing project and get a reimbursement at the, current rate? Which I can't remember, but I think is around 60%.
Yes, around that.
Jim,
The,
Do you think the architects have to be involved, Jim?
The architect will have to be involved to make an adjustment for curbing.
yeah,
If the units are different size, the curb will have to change.
Okay.
And I know that there's been discussions between Mike and our architect about those systems.
So
It's
look,
why we were moving forward with it now, because
but those conversations should include a bigger audience.
Right.
Mike does not constitute the committee by himself.
no, I understand that, but he wasn't thinking that it was gonna be part of the roof project. That's why it's in asking for it for this coming year, because the roof is being replaced this coming year.
I think, you know what, I think that it sounds like what happened is things were kind of looked at separately. And maybe, again, not the bigger audience to go, wait a minute, this is complex, it needs to be done together. I think our opportunity now is, I realize we're behind the 8 ball, is to go, let's find
But
out.
it's not past us.
It's not past us. And it might change some of the schedule in the roof, and let's not worry about that yet, okay? But more along the lines of, does it make the most sense to do this now, or are we gonna shoot ourselves in the foot if we don't? So, So if you can check with the state.
Well,
The other thing
it's
is about
not
the.
State Board of Education, it has to be through DAS, and our architect is setting up a meeting with the DAS.
So there's nothing wrong with finding out how quickly we can get an assessment done. So that we can tell, and work with the architect to see if this is something that he can plan for.
Well, it sounds like what we're trying to do is replace everything that hasn't been replaced recently.
Right. While the roof is being worked on.
Well, it
So
sounds like
that-
Mike might already have done most of that.
Sorry?
Sounds like Mike may have already had that discussion with the architect and just didn't communicate it on up the ladder.
That may well be, but it also might be that you don't have, there's not enough group of people looking at it. The architect, for all I know, the architect could be very focused on, I gotta get this roof up. Okay, that's what my charge is, I gotta get the roof up.
Yes,
As opposed to, okay, somebody's coming in from the side maybe and saying something about these things. We still need to look at it.
Well, this wasn't in his scope of work.
No, I know, and that's, so his view is like this.
Is that your
we
understanding?
brought somebody in to assess all of them. So that we could get a quote
Who did
to
we,
come forward to, that I can't remember the company.
okay, is this like CES or one of those?
One of the companies that are on the approved list for the state.
Did they know about the air exchangers?
That's,
The need for them?
Is it the same company?
so he brought in one company to look at the unit above, or two companies to look at the units above the library.
Okay,
Then he also brought in somebody that can look at all of the air handling units with him to say, yes, this one needs to replace, and here's the number and the priority list, and we'll give you.
and who is the he, it's a company you said, or is it Mike?
Mike brought in people to look, because I asked him for quotes for this capital projects meeting.
Okay. All right,
So these are just things that we're bringing forward to the capital projects committee, to this committee.
So
Because-
when is the actual roof work gonna start? Is it this summer?
That's the hope.
That's the hope.
we gotta
And-
do all the financing and stuff before that.
Right, but let's just say, best case scenario, there are people on our roof of the school this summer. And the hope then would also be that these 8 or so air exchangers, new exchangers, are in place and are getting thrown into the roof at the same time.
It's not as straightforward as that, Christina.
Okay.
To be quite candid, we already have a contract with the contractor. And we are hiring the clerk of the works. And we're looking at getting the financing for the roof, and it does not include this. So all of these wheels are in motion. And so that's why I would expect that you would have an adverse reaction to this. But the reality is we still should be doing due diligence to at least check. To see, and I don't know Mike well. I know he's been there a long time. I don't know if he would be the expert working with the architect to figure all of this out, because the architect wasn't looking at this thing at all.
No, because these are two separate projects. I understand. The reason why I brought it forward was because in my mind, I was like, why would we do a whole roof? Then next year, come to the capital projects committee and say, oh, we now want to put new air conditioners and air
That's
handlers.
because you have common sense. Okay, the things have to be done in the sequence. That's-
Right,
It's a good.
so
you
that's
asked the-
why
you asked the
it's
question.
coming forward
You asked,
now.
you asked the
Right.
question, but you may not have, at the time, had the right people to give you the answer.
No, it's two separate. We weren't looking at these as rolling into the price
No,
of
but nobody
the.
else looked at it,
But
to
it's
know
not
these
two
have to
separate.
be done together.
Because
should be done.
when we didn't include any of this. Mike is reaching out to the architect and asking the architect to do work.
No,
that we're
the
not-
architect
Let
was
him
here,
finish.
the architect was there walking through the whole, in the beginning of this whole project. There's nothing, Mike didn't reach out to him separately and say, hey, a separate conversation. It's just, if Mike came to me, said, hey, we really need to look at the air conditioner. Regardless of what conversations went on, you asking those questions in the past, I'm just telling you what happened
I understand.
this year.
We understand.
I had no idea that the AC, no, I know. I'm not upset. I'm just trying, but I'm also defending Mike because Mike didn't do anything wrong.
Yes, he did. He was there for those 3 conversations. And he said, no, we don't need to replace anything. In fact, he said there were some that should be eliminated.
Okay, so again, I think general solution, or at least to make,
Mhm.
figure out what we need to truly do, is we should get the assessment. I don't know how to do that.
What do you
Um,
mean an
I
assessment?
thought we were looking at getting an assessment of what was needed for those
Yeah, and
air exchangers, et cetera, et
so
cetera.
you want me to bring in another company?
I didn't ask you to bring in another company. I'm just looking at how do we solve this, okay?
I'm just
Um,
waiting for a quote of how many air handlers.
Is that what the assessment is? Because we were talking about whether this can be rolled into the roof project. So we need that kind of information to figure that out, right?
As soon as possible.
Cindy doesn't believe it can be rolled into the roof project.
No,
It's 2
I don't
separate
know if
projects.
I don't think we're there yet.
Well, you said that this was DAS, not State Board of Education,
well, the whole roof project is
is DAS.
DAS, not State Board of
Right.
Education.
But State Board of Education, their review group is the one that approves it.
Right,
And then it goes to DAS for funding.
exactly. We
Right,
have that in our
if
plan.
you want, but we could go through an HVAC grant and do another whole process for the HVAC and keep that, because those are HVAC related. We could go to the state for an HVAC grant process, which would also be DAS. It's the same process. It's just another project
That's the
out there.
indoor air quality grant.
Yes,
Did I go to that?
right.
Or I
We can
sent
go
you in your
for an
packet.
Okay, everybody listen.
In your packet, you have the information from DAS on the indoor air quality, the grant stuff, and I gave you the summary of the bill, public act for improving indoor air quality.
And then
I'm sorry?
I emailed it to you.
I mean, yeah, I did it. I emailed it back to you.
Chuck?
So
Mine for now.
I have another idea, maybe. How much do we think? Is the capital projects committee good with the air conditioning unit, part of this proposal?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking anybody who wants to say something.
Well, I don't vote in this, right? I'm just here to offer my advice. But my opinion is if there's a need for it to be replaced, it should be replaced.
The air conditioner.
The air conditioner
Okay.
and the air handling unit.
All right,
This is-
so what,
This is
what
something that should
if,
all be done at the time the roof is done.
what if we break this up into 2 requests? One for the air conditioner, and then put in the one with the air handling units, and say we're waiting for estimates. But fund the air conditioners initially.
Yeah, that sounds, breaking it up sounds reasonable to me. However, it seems to me that if we can roll it into the grant, that's how
And
we fund all
And we
this.
might be able to.
Right.
So,
But we
Right,
still
but
have
if
one
you
more.
if you increase the amount you're asking for from the town, wouldn't we need to start the entire process over?
No, because what we would have to find out is is this a reimbursable?
Mm-hmm.
right,
If it's a reimbursable, remember, we have $4 million,
5.
so.
And Tom told us that we were robustly funded.
Okay,
So we probably have room, especially if we're careful, we probably
Mhm.
have room to cover this
Right,
in the project.
Well, also, what's wrong with going for the grant for these air handling units? You know, as its own thing, and it's just getting, in terms of installation, it's getting installed as part of the overall installation of the roof.
I don't know, I don't know if the grant deadlines would match up with the project deadlines.
Okay,
You know, that's part of the issue there.
okay, so our fail-safe would be to fund it initially through the full project.
Right.
right,
Because if in fact anything on the physical roof has to change, it
Because of
it
the-
needs to happen at the same time.
Right.
Right. Huh,
Because we don't want, again,
It makes
we don't want to be
sense.
changing curbing on a brand new roof. Because it means cutting into the membrane,
right,
you know,
So Jim, am I right in assuming then that what needs to happen is, you know,
so the.
Cindy has to,
On the green.
somebody has to come to an agreement as to what's going on the roof. Are we repairing
this
and
year.
like, blah, blah, blah. Once that's established, we're
Every
letting
year
the
it
architect
resets.
know these are the units that we're using and they can then assign the appropriate curbing. If
Right.
it's different than what's already there, because I'm assuming that the roof was designed, the new roof is designed, given current conditions.
that's correct.
yes.
If the current condition needs to change, obviously we have to communicate that. But if we're just staying with what we're doing, then
Problem is, we've already signed off on final design, so we'd have to go back and redesign the final design.
That's correct.
Which isn't a big deal, it's an
Right.
addendum.
It's a change order. It happens all the time.
right.
Wow, your voice is super loud.
Oh, sorry.
Is your impression, I'm guessing, is that we would just be replacing with like units, that they're appropriately
This-
sized?
the person that came to do, he would be creating exactly what is currently in place, just replacing and updating.
Yeah,
What I'm understanding is that
That's a little more hopeful.
over time, Mike has replaced some of these units.
mm-hmm,
And he knows how old they are because back when we started this roof project 5 years ago, I had him create a map of the roof. And label all the units and look at age, and he had some of that already, but he finished that mapping. So he knows exactly how old everything is up on that roof. And what my impression from Cindy's explanation is that anything that's over X number of years old, he's saying, well, you know, we probably should replace that now.
And when they say
As
replace,
we're doing the roof.
Yeah.
Um,
and when someone says replace, is it replaced with the same configuration?
so I know that on some of the evacuation or ventilation fans, that he's just changed motors and kept the housing the same.
Right,
Right, so if the housing stays the same, it
Then you're
doesn't
good.
change anything with the condition of the roof. But the air conditioning unit is likely to change the curbing size.
yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Right. But it is the exact, it is, I mean, we're just updating and using the exact same, it's a York for a York. I know it's probably a little bit different.
But they may have different dimensions, right, on
Right.
the base, and
That's
it's the
fine.
footprint of those units that makes a difference in the final design of the roof.
Yeah,
Right,
okay.
all right, so what are our next steps on this?
So the quote that you have is for crane service. For and everything, having it completely installed up on the roof
For the air conditioners.
for the air conditioners.
Air handling units.
Yep. No,
No.
the air
Those
conditioners.
air
Air conditioners.
Okay, that's the quote.
Yep,
And what we want to do is we want to run by that kind of information, run it by the architect, correct? To go, is the design of the roof going to accommodate this change, and do we know, again, Did he know what the
But
air conditioning was gonna be?
So
Like
Jim, is
exactly
it,
what it's supposed to be?
is it fair to ask the replaced air conditioners? Seems to me to be a very simple question. Are the new air conditioners basically the same size as the old?
they're probably not.
And
And
if
if they're
not,
not, how do they change and
Right.
how does that affect anything?
And all, you know, all we need to know is what the curbing size has to be, so that, you know, that adjustment can happen. You know, I think we're at a point anyway where we need to, you know, the Ashford School Roof Building Committee needs to get together with the architect and with the solar installer. The collaboration that's supposed to be happening doesn't seem to be happening at the level it should, and I think the only way that's gonna happen is for the committee to pull the two of them together and get involved. And at the same time, we can have this discussion, and maybe if we have a meeting late next week, maybe Mike and Cindy will be able to have some more information on
Certainly Mike can get
the
the-
exhaust fans.
I mean, Mike can get the information about what the,
Richard, do you wanna break up
dimensions.
this request into two?
I think Chuck said that that was an appropriate idea.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a good idea.
Is that okay with you?
It's fine.
Well, Jim, if we have a meeting,
I'm trying to
if we,
help.
Oh, I know
excuse-
that. Um,
Jim, excuse me, but if we can get a meeting together next week for the school project, should we have Mike have the rest of the mapping information to see if there are any other AC units that are close? Because if we can get them all thrown under the same grant, should we try
There's
to do
only
that?
one,
now?
there's only one other AC unit and it is,
And that one's not that old.
it's not that old. It's in the district office.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think there's only two.
Thank
two-
you.
I don't even think that's on the roof.
Yeah,
Is it?
That would be-
mostly, yeah, that one's on the roof, I'm pretty
Is it?
sure, yeah.
I think it's above
It's above you.
it's above us.
Yeah.
I mean, in the ceiling,
Is it in the ceiling?
I think
thought
it's hanging
I
from
thought
it.
the condenser was up on the roof,
because it's so tall. It's
Oh,
the
maybe-
gym roof.
so it's hung from the roof,
I think so.
okay?
So that doesn't, it isn't, I don't think, up on the roof.
In either case, that one's pretty new, that one.
Right.
That one should not be needed
Nope.
to be replaced.
Good place for volleyballs to get stuck.
Have you had that happen?
Practical.
Hey,
Oh,
Jim,
the
if
old
we,
gym.
excuse me, Jim, Jim and Cindy, if we can pull together a meeting of that Ashford School Committee for the roof, should we try to invite the architect to join in on a Zoom call if
I
possible?
think we need the architect and the solar guy, the solar guy's at a standstill.
Should you do that, you're welcome to use this. Which is, you know, supports Zoom, et cetera. Okay, so let us know.
Cindy
All
usually,
right.
Cindy usually has nice accommodations and she has coffee and donuts when we come, so it's kind of nice when she does.
Wow.
I try to be.
I'm sorry. Couldn't quite hear it. A little fuzzy. Okay, moving merrily along.
Mhm.
ADA compliant entry doors. Can we speak about that?
Yep, those are the doors down by the gymnasium.
Yep.
So it's the bank of exterior aluminum doors and frames and interior, I can't speak, aluminum doors and frames. And it is all the hardware. Basically, it's the whole unit.
So it's a full
Of both.
replacement, exterior and interior,
Yep,
aluminum doors and frames and
Yeah.
whatever holds them up. Okay,
Can I
Any
ask a
questions?
question?
yes.
And am I super loud still, or is it more reasonable?
at least to me, I don't know why. I have trouble hearing John. I don't have any trouble hearing you.
Okay, well, I'll try not to talk too loud. So is the profile of the doors going to change, Cindy? Because what is there 4 doors now to make those ADA compliant? Do they have to get wider? Like what would that look
They
like?
would need to be wider. When they came out and did the quote, it was gonna be in the same frame.
Oh, well, that wouldn't be wider though.
Well, the doors will be wider.
How's that work?
I don't know.
Okay,
They'll take the center post out Those doors have center posts. They'll remove the center post, like up top at the office
speaking?
doors.
Where is that voice
It's
coming
Is that
from?
Paul?
It's
Oh, we
Paul.
didn't know you were on.
Yeah, I came in the middle of the AC discussion and I didn't want to interrupt.
There he
But that's
is.
what'll happen. To answer, I'm guessing that's normally what they do. Is because it's the width of the doors that's not compliant. So they have to move, basically they put new doors in with a different type of, there'll be no center post, I would imagine.
Right, and then they'll open.
Right, so when you open, you'll have like a 6-foot opening instead of
Yeah.
the 2.5 or 3-foot opening that you have now.
Yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
Yeah, and it's great for us when we need to put a stretcher through it too, so.
Okay, the bollard installation. These are bollards in front of the school?
In front of the front entrance and the back entrance. In front of the doors.
Are they new or are you replacing existing?
There is nothing currently
And that's for safety.
for safety.
Yep.
We also, a few extra on the side by our playground that is by the road. My understanding, anything we put along the road, we would need to get
Enforcement.
approval from the
Enforcement
state.
permit.
Yeah. And I do know that there should be something there.
We were supposed to put large stones there several years ago.
Correct. Yes,
Would,
I
just-
remember that discussion.
I don't know why that never happened.
I was gonna say, just out of curiosity, would large stones be more attractive than the bollards?
I would be, well, those are going to be, they're gonna be planters.
Oh.
But large stones would be fine too. I
Is
have
one
plenty
this-
of them in my yard.
I know a guy with a
He might even have a
Front
brand
loader.
new loader.
You wanna
I-
come
I-
and take?
I have a couple I'm willing to part with too, so.
That was on the side of the playground.
Okay, one at a time.
Yeah, on the side of the playground, on the road side of the playground,
Yeah.
for history purposes, about 5 years ago, there was an accident that occurred right there.
Mhm.
Preschool was out at recess.
And they went right through the fence there.
They did not, but in my mind,
That fence doesn't hold cars.
correct.
Yeah.
And there used to be trees there,
Yeah.
but more recently, those were taken down. There is a sign there. There is one tree, I believe, that is still there. But something
It's a
would be
bowl,
nice
it's definitely a
to
vulnerable
have
area.
there. It is.
It was actually, I don't remember what capacity you were in the school back in those days, but
Director,
when we actually, when I was on the Board of Ed, we had a security assessment.
correct.
And that was an outcome of the security assessment.
Yep.
Yeah,
Wow, and for something that, I hate to
And
make minimize, it costs
congratulations.
$5,400, less than $5,400. I'm amazed that we haven't done it before now. So.
Well, the
security
idea
assessment.
behind boulders is they were free.
Correct.
Yeah,
And it was just gonna take collaboration between two superintendents ago and
This,
the highway
I
department.
think there was something about the highway department. Because it would have been too close a boulder, we would have needed to move the fence. In order to be able to fit a boulder between there and the road.
that makes sense.
So one of the discussions was putting a bench, like a big bench, a couple of benches by the road on the side of the fence. But there's swings there, so there was issues with how much space. I know it was looked into, I don't know all the details because I wasn't,
My only concern about bollards in proximity to roadways and parking areas is they rot because of the salt that we use to treat the roadways and parking areas.
What are the bollards made out of?
They're concrete filled steel
Mhm.
tubing. And they'll last a while, but they just don't,
Okay.
a rock lasts forever.
yes,
Right.
Stonehenge is still around.
You
We know
so
that rocks last forever because Ashford's built on rock.
listen, I would love to see a solution here and
Yeah.
praise Cindy for, following through on something that's probably 8 or 10 years old at this
Mhm.
point, and we should have taken care of, so,
Okay,
however it's solved, I think it needs to be solved, but my, my preference would be if we can solve it with boulders, and not because they look better or they're cheaper, they don't rot out because it's
Right.
all.
But that does not solve.
It
the-
doesn't solve the space issue.
Well, it doesn't solve the ones that are in front of the doors.
The
No,
ones in
they
front of the
still-
doors, planters,
The concrete.
the concrete planters just would be,
they're easy.
it would
It's
be
more-
pretty, it would,
Yeah,
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 and they're easy
absolutely.
and.
So, yeah.
All right,
His, question is, the state, you mentioned that the state might have had an issue with the distance. Is that 15 feet usually?
It depends on what the state's right of way is there, they don't have any jurisdiction outside of their right of way. But within their right of way, they certainly do have jurisdiction.
So if we just plop boulders there, they can, and they probably will scream. They have in the past with our town of Ashford signs. Welcome to Ashford signs.
big one.
They actually made us remove a stone wall. It was a very sore spot with me because I built it. They made us
And
remove it.
is that because of,
it was
site?
within the 15 foot.
Because within
Right
the
of way.
state right of way, you have to apply for an
Right, because otherwise
encroachment
you
permit,
actually have to get.
which is what we had to do when we tried to put the speed signs up at the school.
Yeah.
And they turned us down.
All right,
So if we clear that with them, Public Works would be happy to do it
Okay,
very quickly.
I'll reach out to the state about it.
thank you.
But most of
either
these were
way, it
in
should
front
get
of
done.
the, yeah.
Either way, it should get done.
Yes.
I have a check mark on that particular item.
Yes, put a big star on that one. Okay, moving now, actually, I wanted to kind of look at these bus, van replacement, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like to look at those kind of in concert. And I realize that they're for succeeding years. But when we talk about replacing, first of all, there's 20 million, if I understand correctly, in the state right now that's being dispersed for electric school buses, something like that. Well, you can bet your bottom dollar they're not coming here. Okay, they're not coming here because we're out in rural America here, and they're looking at those in all likelihood for some of the more urban areas. So when we think about putting in, this pursuit of electric buses, it's more than just replacing the buses we have. First of all, it would probably be a staggered approach. Second of all, you would need a garage or whatever and the skilled person to work with electric buses. So to me, that sounds like a very big initiative that has to be well thought out if in fact you were going to pursue it. You also have, from a political perspective, you have that, who's driving those buses? Would it be the people that are driving them now? That's good to hear, and I want the public to hear that.
Yes,
But, so when we look at doing, let's just say we were doing this first one. The reality is you would have to have all that infrastructure in place to support an electric bus, to even have an
right.
electric bus.
And if I can interject just for a
That's
minute
that's
too.
all I need to say.
Yeah, not only do we have to have the infrastructure, but where we go needs to have it. So,
How is that?
because if you're running low,
Where do you plug in?
where do you plug in? If you're in, you have a game out in Thompson and you need Thompson to have, or you take a field trip somewhere, you need to be able
Makes
to
sense.
have that backup to be able to plug in. So that is part of, and it's, I do know that there are electric buses out there.
Yes.
There are some large companies that have some, bus companies that have some, and they currently are not in use.
Good to
So,
know. So how did this get on this list?
it's been there for years.
Well, I think I know who might have introduced it.
So, it definitely has been a topic of discussion, and the Board of Ed at one point wanted it, we really did look into it pretty thoroughly last year. The committee met and went over all the information that was out there, and they kind of tabled it because it's just not there yet. I keep it there just because there is a law out there that states that all school buses must be by 2030 electric.
And what we've had is Senator
Right.
Gordon has been in here, he represents us, and we've had Pat Boyd in here. And if I understand correctly, there was a plan to get to 2030 in terms of having the infrastructure out there.
Correct.
And that plan has been stalled.
Mhm.
And in fact, the day before, they were supposed to move it forward. And maybe John has more information, you were saying?
No, I just said it's not gonna happen.
Oh,
That's
well,
too tight a timeline.
as I was saying, certainly, we had people here to talk directly with Senator Gordon, and he got chewed up a bit. And Pat Boyd was telling us that this is what seems to be in the way of all of this, and they don't have their ducks in a row.
Mhm.
And now they're saying, well, we don't know if we can make 2030, so we don't know what we're doing.
Right.
So, and part of the reason they're not making 2030 in all likelihood is because they haven't worked through their plan. And whatever the department is that's behind working with this, they pulled up what they were proposing the day before they were all look at it. That's what we heard at the meeting.
Right, and last year when we looked at buses, it was decided that we would go with the diesel and, the van,
Well,
or
gasoline.
the
if we could get
gasoline,
it.
yes. Gasoline
Okay,
and the
how
van.
How much does it charge?
How many miles?
How do you measure the amount of electricity that the vehicle needs?
There's a meter.
Yeah, like a gas.
So how much, is it a kilowatt hour that you,
If you had an electric car and you went somewhere to charge your car that you don't own, you're either doing it on an app on your phone
Right,
and plugging in your credit card number, or you're swiping a credit card on the charger.
right.
I'm just wondering about. So you're tapping an electric source to charge your electric vehicle.
Well, this is one of the reasons why John says that it's not gonna happen by 2030, right? Because
Mhm.
if you, let's say that, we decide we're gonna change the fleet over at the Ashford School to electric buses, right?
But
And we have an 800 amp electrical service. Is that 800 amp electrical service adequate for the existing school building and charging, I don't know, what are we running now, 6 buses, 4 buses? Is it adequate enough to charge all of those buses and operate the current electrical infrastructure? Right, because it's not just changing over to electric school buses, it's putting in more electric heating and cooling.
okay,
And so then it goes out to the grid on the street. Is the grid on the street robust enough to handle the power? And we're already, if you talk to your emergency management director, you're already on a list somewhere for a rolling blackout
mhm,
based on energy consumption and energy use. So when we start using more power because we can't generate as much as we're gonna use, what does that do?
so on this hand, we have groups like the Clean Energy Task Force who advocate. Use as little or, utilize as little electricity as you can, put up solar panels. Then you have the solar panel people who I assume are paying something into the electric, something for their solar panels. Then you have the people with the electric buses. So you have these people who say, don't use electricity. These people who are saying, use more electricity. Where,
And meanwhile, you're burning more natural gas to make electricity, which is what they don't want you to burn in the first place.
So it's a very complex issue, and it is a very broad issue because you have to have the physical infrastructure in place throughout the state,
Right.
basically,
Mhm.
to be able to support them, and there's gotta be a rolling rollout, so to speak.
I think for the
So I don't think
purposes,
they're gonna be seeing us soon or talking to us soon. What I would like to suggest is that these 3 things, this bus van replacement where it says electric, that be moved down to the bottom of your list?
Mhm.
Or look
Because-
into a hybrid.
You did, right? It was more expensive.
Hybrid?
But we did in Bolton for a senior van. And it was $25,000 more expensive than a gasoline van.
I think for the purposes of this meeting,
Of
there's
this-
just not enough information to even consider this. It's just not the place of this board, this committee to figure out. I mean, we all have probably a political impression of where we should go with this, one way or the other.
Yeah.
I don't care which side anybody sits on.
Right,
But we just don't, this is completely irrelevant to this committee. There's just not enough information.
right. So it becomes, do we put it on the bottom to kind of keep track of it? Or do we take it off?
I personally,
Yeah.
I would take it off. It's just
Okay.
not.
Well,
enough.
one question is, then do we replace,
I
guess
can
we need
just,
a bus next.
but
year.
I can just say bus
Right,
or
plain
van,
bus,
just bus van. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be, we don't have to
I
we
like
don't have to
that
put it on
bus
there,
thing.
right,
whether it's electric or whether it's
right.
not.
There may be a day that you come and say, look, here's the electrical,
is-
and this is why it makes sense. And then
here's
we
the
all
state's
go,
pla- and here's the
okay.
state's plan.
Yep.
Right, here's the funding side of it, blah, blah, blah. It's just, we are so not there.
Mhm.
It's
All right, so we're
not-
just gonna take the words electric off, is that
Right.
correct?
Yes,
All right,
and
so-
my understanding is bus or van. It's
Okay.
not both
And we-
each
we'll
year,
always do
right?
that.
All right, so we have, it's
Yeah.
gonna be one year and one the next.
Yeah,
One each
So-
year, like we used to.
You have to figure out next year, which is,
which is needed, yes.
yeah,
And that's for next year. What is not needed is for this coming year, is that correct?
right,
Correct, because we purchased two.
yeah.
last
Very
year.
nice.
Would one of those vans that we would be retiring for school purposes be able to be reutilized for some other purpose in town?
Animal control has one, and it has 163,000 miles on it. And it's broken down on the highway twice,
Yeah,
and it's a piece of shit because they beat the hell out of them for the 150,000 miles that they drive
okay.
them,
So when they're done, they're
but
done.
they're done.
Okay.
Seth uses one for parts. When David can steal
Okay.
one, he does.
Good to know. Okay, thank you.
Okay, going down to update locker rooms. Which locker rooms are these? Are these,
Again, if you look,
or are they, there's lockers and locker rooms?
there's,
Those are
Yes.
next year.
that was on next year.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
Yeah, the three that we just went through are the ones that were on
in
this
process.
year. Yep, the only other things that were on this year's was the engineering firm for the lead line, which we do not have enough information on.
That's down at the bottom here?
Yeah,
Lead testing survey engineer.
right.
Yeah.
And that we don't have enough information. We've been reaching out to the state to get more clarification on what that means, and we have not. I'm just putting it on there as a
Good.
need to put it out there.
What is it that you have to test, Cindy?
My understanding, it has something to do with the actual pipes, not the water coming out, because we already get tested on a regular basis
Right, you get tweaked.
For lead-
quarterly testing.
for lead testing or in all kinds of things. Lead is one of the things that they're testing for.
So most of the time, the lead is in the solder and not in the pipes, so I think that would be our case. And I think at this point, Mike has replaced almost every one of our water coolers, which is where the water sits and would
Correct.
collect lead. So I suspect we're probably in halfway decent condition.
Do we need to know that, though?
Yes, you're gonna.
And,
be able to-
and that's
Testing will do,
why,
right?
that's what that's what someone is going to be coming out and surveying what we have in place. But the company that we use for our water said, we don't do this because we don't have enough guidelines. There's not enough out there. They gave us a name for an architect to go out.
I would suspect that you're probably right, but I would want to know that you're
You gotta
right.
know that. yeah.
Right, so I would definitely agree that, we need to be able to provide that surety to everybody.
Correct.
Is
I
it-
mean, our water is tested, we just went through a phase where our water was being tested every 6 months. So we know that the water coming out is clean
Yeah,
and is clean of lead and
right,
other harmful things, but yes, we don't know what our pipes actually or our
It's the, yeah, it's,
Infrastructure.
your pipes are probably copper, given
Mhm.
the age of the structure. But it's the solder, and the solder probably contains some amount of lead.
Right.
Which is not. It's pretty typical.
right. Yep.
Is there a date by which you have to have a survey completed? No,
No.
but there's a mandate.
How could there be a mandate with no date? Oops, was it the state?
That's stated.
Just checking.
I can't offer you any guidance on this one.
So Cindy, that's just
Yeah.
something that you're
most,
looking,
honestly, most aren't even adhering to it because we're all stuck in HVAC and the rest of the stuff that comes down.
but that's something that you're looking for, not this
No,
fiscal, it's
'cause-
the next
The
fiscal.
next year.
right, but we
Okay.
don't even know what that entails.
Right, okay.
On the HVAC system upgrade, how does that have any relationship to?
That's for
the
next
roof?
year too.
That's.
Well,
to the-
yes and no. So there's also this coming year in our budget, we will be doing an HVAC system survey. So they will come in, it's a state requirement. Every year, it's going to need to be done in a school building to test the air quality in the building.
Is this the $30,000 thing you were
Yes,
talking about in the budget? And you were talking about it inflating the budget for
right.
MBR, which is a problem.
Right.
Yes, but it is something that has to be done
Annually,
annually.
Mhm.
So
So-
my recollection
I
is
sent
there's
it to
two
you, it's in
assessments.
your packet.
One is every 5 years and it's really robust.
Yes,
And then every
Every
other
year.
Every year
it's
you have to
indoor air quality
report indoor air
testing, which
quality.
isn't as bad.
You said
Correct.
every other year, not every year.
So every 5 years, you've got to do
I heard that one.
really robust testing. In between those 5-year periods, you've got to do indoor air quality testing
You have to do it every single.
every single year.
yes.
Based on the
So-
bill load.
So that's a given in their budget.
Mhm.
So that's a given.
Or it's a
Or-
given in here like. we
or
do-
it's a given in
Or it's
here,
a given in here like we do reval.
right?
And the only
I-
reason
I will tell
only
you,
reason
Because
it's even
for Bolton, it's in the capital budget.
in the capital budget.
I agree with Chuck and Jim. That should be a capital thing. Because putting it into the school budget is gonna impact us forever.
Yes, it will.
Well, yeah, because it's something that
Right,
has to be done for,
And if it's $30,000 essentially a year,
I don't think it's gonna be 30,000 every 5 years. And
oh, that's
whatever.
the robust one.
And then it's, I think we budgeted like 15 or 20,000 in the ensuing years based on. the
yeah,
information.
we did 20, we didn't do 30.
Yeah.
So I agree.
We only
I
have
think it
one
should
bill
be
to-
in this,
Yeah.
I
So
think it
should
should
I
be
put
in
20 in here?
the capital improvement plan.
yes.
I don't know, because my thought was that the testing would be through the school budget. Because it's the maintenance of the building, because the school, the BOE is required to keep up the maintenance of the building. But the HVAC, whatever comes out of that, that may need to be replaced,
Would be a
would be
town
the
responsibility.
town responsibility. That's the way
Yeah,
we
it's
were
not
thinking about it.
illogical at all.
No, it's not. illegal.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way the thought process was, because we're gonna have to come to the town if it's a big ticket.
So what's gonna happen is
Replacement.
if it's $15,000-$20,000 a year. So, to do the in-between before or after robust testing. Then every year that's gonna be in the school budget until you don't have to do it,
Well, and the other issue is they're gonna come out with recommendations, right?
right?
And these recommendations are gonna be things that you have a timeline that you have to follow through on, which probably the first year is gonna get pretty costly, is my guess.
So do people wanna leave it in the school budget and then just deal with the ramifications of the survey through this budget?
I guess I'm concerned about MVR. Because if in fact, well, let's just say it requires more money than we thought. So that's going to be something that's going to, let's just say the school budget passes and you got that in there. And then it comes back and we find out it's gonna be more. Well, within the school budget, you're gonna have to cut other items in order to cover that, right? But you still have that 20,000 in there. You know, as the thing you have to carry, the next year you have to have 20,000, the next year you have to have 20,000.
Right, but the more would be if something was flagged and we need it to be replaced, would be when you would come to this committee and say, we have, or to the Board of Finance and say, we need.
Is there any other kind of test? Well, it's probably a dumb question. Any other kind of testing that's done that's that pricey during the year? That you have to do every year?
I mean, not that price, no, not that pricey, but I mean, we have radon testing, we have water testing, there's all kinds of tests.
The public act that they passed set the parameters for the testing. And
Understood.
then they also, I think I don't know if it was DAS or somebody put a list of certified vendors together.
Correct.
And you have to use one of their certified vendors. So now you have a captive audience,
Correct.
which is 169 school systems in the state of Connecticut.
Right.
And you have a finite list of people. So unfortunately, in my opinion, what that does is that, although it probably, what the state was driving at is these companies that they've chosen meet certain qualifications for the quality of testing. The problem is it drives the cost up because it's not as competitive.
Right.
Jim, why did you guys put this item into your capital budget for real?
Because it's not recurring so the test that they have to do this next year is the robust year,
Okay.
right? And that doesn't recur every 5 years, right? So, and I think that's the reason that our superintendent thought it was most appropriate to put in the capital budget, and our capital committee agreed.
It
Right.
makes sense. What about for the not so robust testing?
Do you have a sense of where that goes for your circumstances?
It's gonna be less money, but we honestly didn't talk about that for beyond this year.
So my understanding from the information I was given was that the money we put in our budget is the recurring every year amount. It's not the robust one. The
Understood.
robust one, that's when people are going, we haven't done, that's not part of the
I can
one we
see
put in our
I can
budget.
see the 5-year one being in the
Yes.
capital budget,
We haven't
just like
gone
we're
out,
talking about.
we haven't gone out to bid for that one yet.
So, can I make I have a question.
Yeah.
So this 30,000 estimate here is for the robust or for what you're anticipating annually?
It must be the robust,
It's gotta be the robust.
only because it's not something they've had.
I'm sorry, I just couldn't think of a better term, so.
Right, no, I
That's a good one.
agree.
Just pick for-
We all understood that one.
I'm trying to find it on here, sorry.
Is it the first time they're doing this kind of
This
testing?
is the first,
Then it's gotta be the robust.
I don't see it on here.
is the deadline 2025 or 2026, Cindy, do you remember?
What?
To complete the first round of testing. And I think the first round of testing has to be the more in-depth testing,
Right, and then
Because they
after
want you-
there it's. to make-
because they want you to have a baseline and make recommendations, and then beyond that, you might have to implement, you get a time frame to implement recommendations.
Yeah.
The one that we're currently, it's an annual reporting form is the one and that's self-reporting form. That's the one that was due January 1st, 2024.
Right.
The 5-year, oh yeah, I see this, okay. Reporting form for the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning is the 2025. So
That's the expensive one, I think,
Yes,
is next year.
But that's the one we want on the capital improvement plan.
right, but the one that we currently have in the budget is for the one that results of such of the inspection of our current. It's the one that was due January 1st, 2024.
Right, so next year's is gonna be more expensive.
Correct.
Okay, so it's next year's, if I understand correctly, it sounds like next year's is the robust test.
Correct.
And so that one should be on this plan.
Correct.
Everybody agree?
And that one
to
should be on this plan every 5 years.
Every
is
5
what you're
years.
saying.
Exactly.
Yep.
Good to
Thank you.
know.
Yep.
Okay, rolling down here to, senior center door replacement. We have 3 bids for that, if you will, or 3 estimates. And the first one was about $7,900. We're not terribly comfortable with that company because their bid was so much lower than the other ones. And also, if I understand correctly, they weren't using Anderson doors. So what happened was Casey got 2 other estimates. One was about 16,000 and the other one was 17,000. And the difference between the 2, if I recall, was the 17,000 one was to replace everything. The 16,000 one was to reuse some portions of the door components. Or was it more than that? I think we took the middle one, didn't we?
Yeah.
Can somebody look it up? I don't have it. with me.
TBH is here, what's that?
12,199.
12,
Oh, 12.
which is, I thought was a
Can
decent
you,
price.
can you, kind of explain some of the differences maybe between?
The doors were super pricey. Faro Construction called me halfway through the bid and he said, do you want me to continue? Cause the doors are like $9,000. I'm like, oh yeah, I need some bids, you know?
Yeah,
So I think he didn't wanna waste his time, but wherever he's buying his doors.
This may, this,
It's like,
well, this one from Faro may be a better quality door.
that's the whole thing, you know?
and which one is that? Is that the 17,000?
This is the
Yeah.
17,000 one because what he's saying in his estimate here is that the existing door is rotten. And he's looking at using frame saver jambs
Mhm.
with stainless steel hinges. So that's gonna be a rot resistant.
So Chuck, I could see you smiling and getting a little pink there. So what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about last time, that although I'm a little curious because those are clad units over there, right? So in other words,
I think TBH was gonna reuse like some of the hardware. I'm not sure about.
That's the $12,000,
What you're asking.
right?
yeah, so
And framing.
I don't understand why those clad units, I think they're aluminum clad units over there. So
I don't remember honestly.
I
been a while since
I
I-
stopped over there and took a quick look on the outside and I think they're aluminum clad units, so.
I think you need to see from the inside.
Yeah, but yeah, the Jam Saver absolutely is just dumb not to do it.
So,
Is that listed in TBH's?
It doesn't, I didn't see it specified.
I can call and ask.
Yeah, they're talking about using the existing hardware, I don't know.
somehow that seemed a little,
I mean,
maybe,
if you're getting a new door, you might as well get a new door, you know.
that's that penny wise and pound foolish thing.
Yep. Stainless steel hinges? Instead of oozing them up with oil that doesn't look very attractive on the one that's used all over the place, which, you know, why it's not ball bearing hinges as well, I don't know, but whatever. I think we've had problems with those doors, so we should probably upgrade because the doors that are there didn't fit the bill. So,
Do it once, do it right.
yeah, I think, you know.
All right, so we have, I'm gonna say the right estimate in here
Yep.
at this point.
Yep,
Website upgrade, so, with that one, Chris was very diligent, and we looked at ARPA funding for that. It fits ARPA funding perfect.
oh, good.
And, the I think the thing is, we don't have a lot of ARPA funding, and we know that some estimates for projects or whatever initiatives are probably going to have to go higher. So that feels a little dicey, but we do feel that we have enough for this upgrade, not a lot of other new ARPA stuff.
So last time when we met last time, I was wondering, does this number include the ongoing charges? So annually, we'll have a certain amount,
$8,000 is what they said annually.
right?
And by the way, every 3 years, they basically replace the system.
Mhm.
And that's part of just
Yeah.
the 8,000
Okay.
for that year. The 8,000 for the first year is in this number.
So it would seem to me, and this is for Christine, if I could wave a magic wand, I would have 8,000 put into the clerk's budget now, because it is going to be a reoccurring budget cost moving forward. I would drop the 8,000 out of this, leave the remaining, because that's actually a capital improvement.
No, you can't do it that way.
The total 1-year cost for migration, implementation and hosting would total
25,
24,447
right?
with an annual recurring fee of 7,314 beginning in year 2.
Spread.
So what
So,
I'm
No, you're-
getting
What
at,
you're talking about, I understand what you're talking about, not gonna fly. It won't work. Because you have to have, first of all, you gotta pay them the 25,000 in the year they do it.
that's fine, we can get the money from wherever
So
we
we're
have to
gonna
get it.
tax, so we're gonna put it in the
Yeah, we're
budget.
gonna actually tax for what we have to tax moving forward.
So bear with me. You have not seen the rough budget that we have, what's been submitted. Okay, so we know there are some large increases, like the fire department is desperate for staff. They don't have enough people. They want to put 2 more people on to cover, so they don't miss calls. They need to find ways to induce people to stay. They're talking about a $1 increase, for the people. The other thing is that they also want to offer PTO. These people don't get benefits. Okay, PTO, I think it's about 8 days a year, and it's critical. This is a critical need, and it just so happened that last Thursday night, I've told a number of people, last Thursday night, I watched the, fire chief, and I thought it was Stafford, but it was Summers. Basically down on his hands and knees in front of the Board of Selectmen saying, we cannot cover the calls. We just can't. We need more staff. And this is not just a problem for our basically rural area. It's a problem in Connecticut, and it's a problem a national problem, because you can't get the volunteers. But you still have to have the coverage, and they don't have enough staff to do that.
So we're
So they
thinking,
have a large wages increase.
yeah,
Understandable. Now that I know what it is and what it breaks down to, it makes perfect sense. It's just that that's a big number. It's, what is it? Almost 2/3 of a mil?
so next year, and again, I'm not on the Board of Finance anymore, I'm just talking out
I know,
loud
I'm
here.
glad you were.
So what I'm saying is, next year, this 8,000 is going to be a cost.
Yes, it will.
Nothing else is changing.
Well,
Do you
Okay,
want to
Christina.
tax them? Do you want to add to the taxes that they're gonna have for this coming year? And do
I
you have to hit them there? Because I can tell you this, that the finance department, the assessors department, both need more staff. They need
Yep.
more help. They
Yep.
don't have enough hours available to them to get everything done. So they're looking for an increase. We have some other areas that need an increase.
When would the new website go into effect? In other words, when are
It would be
we?
in the summer.
So it would be not this budget year, it would be next budget year. Right, so the $8,000, whatever, second year fee. So next year is
Would not hit
24,
next year, it'd be the year
25, so
after
the
that.
8,000 would be in 25, 26.
Right.
So.
And one of the things I would like to see, and I don't know if it's possible, is I don't know if there can be, as time goes on, any grants out there that have to do with, I don't want to say websites, but expanding communication. Okay, that can help pay for some of this. Well, we do know we have the ARPA funding for the 25 grant. And, the company, I don't know. In terms of, and they've looked at companies and, the group that has looked at them, they conducted an RFP, they did a great job. The selectmen have not decided on, certainly the group, the team that conducted the RFP and everything recommend a particular company. So the Board of Selectmen has not approved that yet.
Yeah, I don't argue the initiative at all.
No.
I think
know
it's a
you don't.
good initiative. I just think
Tax them now.
I have argued from day one, whenever we started this, 10 years ago or longer, that this is a dwindling fund. And any time we can,
Taxes we go. That's what that really is.
you know. So I mean, I would certainly support leaving it here just as it is, but I would, if I had the power, which I don't,
Yeah.
I would fight to have it within their budget
So,
because it's an ongoing
I
budget.
think that's what I heard Christine say is that it wouldn't have to be in the budget, the town clerk's budget, until fiscal year 26.
no, he's talking about it being in
No,
2025.
in 24, 25 is the 25,000.
Right, but he's saying take
The
8,000.
second year payment, the first full
25,
payment we have to make for a year
Is
will be in
2026.
26, 27.
Correct.
Right.
So that's,
Then it's in the budget then. I don't see the point in doing it now if we don't have to spend that money right now.
Well, then we'll just take 8,000 out of this capital improvement budget that we now have to find somewhere else.
Excuse me, it was gonna come out of ARPA.
Right.
Yet ARPA
Because
could
it-
be done, ARPA could be
could-
used for something else, right?
This one actually truly fits one of the four categories.
I don't
of ARPA.
argue that. I'm just saying, this is gonna be a recurring thing. The 8,000 could be used for something else. We're talking about
You're-
actually pennies in the grand scheme.
Right.
I'm not really gonna argue about it
It
much
is,
more,
it's a
but-
small amount, and quite frankly, in 3 years, we're probably gonna go with a new vendor anyway. You know, like these things do turn over pretty quickly.
No.
Right,
don't.
that's a point. But anyway, that's fine. I'm
Your
done.
point is well taken, thank you, your point is well taken. Okay.
and we can put it in here under 26, 27 just as a placeholder to remind us that we will have a $75 charge for website.
7,500.
I mean, 7,500. Yes,
$75 would be nice.
That would be nice. I'll pay that.
That really would be pennies.
Good,
Okay, that's fine.
thank you, and thank you for making your point.
And for getting
The,
excited, Attorney Rick.
Okay, so moving on.
I just as a point for you guys to consider, I couldn't read it on my phone. Currently, the assistance to firefighters grant period is open through March 8th. I don't know if the SAFER grant is part of that current availability, because I just couldn't read the small print.
I don't know what safer is.
So that would be a program through FEMA that would help you increase your number of firefighters, and they would pay like 80% the first year. And that
Yeah,
percent.
the problem
Oh,
with the
good, he's
SAFER
not.
grant is, it's a front-loaded grant, and the good part of it is 80%, give or take, first year, it goes down over 5 years. And after year 5, you're stuck with the whole bill. But the other part of that is, it's a time-consuming effort to apply. And I'm not there in person for a reason. So,
When you say it's a
and
time.
I don't know
consuming grant to apply
if
for-
that is open this year, Jim. I haven't looked through. I was looking for some other stuff, for some equipment. I don't know if SAFER is one of them. Mansfield got saddled with, they used a SAFER grant 7 years ago, and last year they had to cut 2 positions because they found out that they didn't budget enough for when it happened.
Yeah,
So it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I think I think we'll disagree on the logic here, Paul, which is okay, which that's what, that's what good communication is made on. But I would rather, listen, if we need the staff, we need the staff. It sounds like you've made an impression on the Board of Selectmen with your
So
report.
on this selectman, the other
At least
selectmen
one
haven't seen
selectman,
it.
right? You've made an impression. A positive impression for the need of staff. My philosophy is, if we can get 80% of it paid for in the first year, 60% of it paid for in the second year, 40% of it, it is, and I understand it's a lot of work to apply for these grants. I'm the guy who writes most of the grants for the town that I work for. Cindy's written a bunch of grants for the Board of Ed. Catherine and Christine write grants for the town. But in my opinion, if we get a little bit of it paid for every year, it's not as poo-poo on Mansfield, because that's really poor planning on their part if they had to cut 2 positions because they didn't plan to cover the whole cost over a period of 5 years. And that's where I think this group of people would do a much better job, because they would willingly take the 80% the first year and continue to fund that, and knowing at the end of the 5-year period, but that, that makes an easier case to sell it to the taxpayers. And why not take advantage of federal funds when you can? I understand that filling out a grant for FEMA is a daunting task. We've done them before for, the last one we did was for a brush truck, and it was, we got $150,000 brush truck virtually paid for. So I understand what it is, but, if it happens to coincide, and look, we got less than 30 days to put a grant together, if it's possible, if it's even, the safer grant's even available, but, I just think you should look at it.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean you have to do it. You could decide you don't have the staff or the time, and it may not be available. Sure, it may not be part of what FEMA's offering. But, I know they offered it last year. I don't know if they're currently offering it this year.
okay. So that would be the fire department looking at that grant.
Well, it could, listen, I think it would be a group effort. I don't think, I don't think Paul would have time to do this by himself. And this is where, I think we as towns need to do better and, not be as short-sighted. Sometimes we have to pay grant writers.
That's
I was
exactly,
just,
I was
I was
just
gonna
my,
go there.
it's my thing, and I've actually started doing some reach outs to find out kind of like, what are the arrangements that you can make with grant writers in terms of how they get paid, and where do you find them? And we need municipal grant writers.
Well, and this is
I
where.
would be curious what that would cost. Like,
Well,
is
but
it,
this is, yeah. But this is also where our cogs really should be
How much
stepping
a
in.
grant writer would cost.
That's what
Yeah.
that's part of it.
Yeah.
First, I wanna find out, so because sometimes they're paid out of the grant itself,
Often they're paid from, or a percentage.
or a percentage. And so, I've talked with Margie Chady on economic development, because they have also offered to help in some way with grant writing, and recommended having a grant writer. So, I got a name from Margie Chady. I've gotten one from Mike Gantic, a company that has grant writers. And what I really want to do is just to kind of, I'm gonna call out to a few towns and see what they're doing, how they're accomplishing that. If they're even using a grant writer from outside. And see what I can find out that way. I'm gonna talk to Mike D'Amato. He'll probably have a good sense of that as well. So, and those were all conversations we had this week, actually this week and last week. So, that was gonna be my next thing is, Paul, how could we help you?
I don't know, have somebody write the grant. I'm trying to see. I didn't get anything on a safer grant this year. I got
I
a
don't
bunch of
know, I
stuff
don't know
on
if safer is
PPE.
part of it, Paul.
There was a couple for PPE that I was looking at working on, and I've actually, last year I worked with the town of the Millington Wellington Fire Department to work on. We applied for a grant for communications equipment and we were denied. It was a group effort with us in Wellington. It didn't work out. But that's just the way the feds go.
I also have, there's a NECOG meeting not this Friday, but the next Friday. And they're actually gonna be meeting here. So this is one of the things I can talk to my NECOG partners, if you will, about.
Yeah,
think
I
it's a
don't see
legislative meeting.
anything on the list, but
Yeah, it may not be available this year, I
Yeah,
don't
it may
know.
not be available, but it's worth taking a look.
I heard Catherine say she's looking at a daunting budget,
oh yeah,
if it
no,
was,
I know.
if it
'cause
was
I'm looking at the
available,
same
it would be a
one,
way
so-
to help that bottom line.
Right. Okay,
I have a check mark on that one.
you have a check mark on
Yeah.
it? Check mark like for me?
No, check mark for I'm supporting that one.
I see. That's good. Where are we here?
Basketball
Resurface
courts.
2 basketball courts. 3 bids were received. This is the middle bid. And you'll see in your packets, it covered everything from completely resurfacing to putting like 1 inch versus 3 inch versus filling the cracks. I think Krukoff was one of the bidders, or somebody else.
They're all
If I
local,
recall.
Willis, Brookhoff, and Hipsky.
in Hipsky. And if you've looked at the basketball courts, they look terrible.
Seems pretty fair.
There was another thing too, and the camera surveillance devices. Now, this one's interesting because there was a situation where a woman left her purse in the car unlocked down at Ashford Memorial Park. And I guess somebody took her purse. And that's the only situation that I've heard of where it was something being stolen. What we have had is we have had people going out and deciding on motorbikes, going out and saying, let's just turn off everything. And which is gonna lead me to the next thing. Anyway, for this one, this was Sherry. She's been working with some people on Parks and Rec who have some expertise in it. And I can't remember, do we have the, did they give us estimates?
We have one estimate from some company, and then we have an amorphous something from Spectrum.
Yes, I'm not impressed with how these bids were gotten at this point, but that's my personal opinion.
I mean,
Um,
Spectrum says there's no upfront cost, and that makes you worry.
Every time, it means, wow, how.
Yeah, then the monthly costs are gonna kill you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but this was because we have had some vandalism there. And what you do have to do, if you put up surveillance
You have
cameras,
cameras?
devices, you have to put up a sign that says they're there.
Who did your cameras?
So,
Oh,
anyway, that's what this one is about.
So
Maybe we
how do
should
you,
encourage them to try to get a
do you
quote
have
from-
internet available where you wanna put these cameras? How are you gonna
You
capture
know
the
what?
image?
Don't know, Red Rider. The, good point.
And it might be worth telling them to contact Venture did the school's cameras.
Venture,
Venture.
thank you.
There used to be a phone booth
Huh?
near the, pavilion.
But if you don't have internet connectivity, where are the cameras gonna connect to?
Exactly.
Satellite,
Well, and it becomes, what's the plan
Oh.
for monitoring or whatever?
Maybe we could use, what was his
Do
name?
those,
But
it's
there-
like a
there
trail
was a
cam.
phone-
One person at a time, basically like a trail cam, if I understand correctly.
So it's within its own unit. So you have to take the camera in order to look at the footage that's
Don't-
on there.
I don't know yet. Okay, I don't know, was there anything in the description that said anything like that?
So if it's.
I don't think we got a whole
if
lot of
it's-
detail.
If it's similar
Oh, sure,
to
make me look
if it's similar to a game camera, you can actually
to your
have it
phone.
upload to a satellite link. And you can pay for the photos. I have an app on my phone. I have game cameras that send me pictures every now and then.
Do you have them as part of your municipality?
No, I have them as part of my woods.
So,
Bear,
this,
I haven't seen a bear. I've seen coyotes and foxes and
Yeah.
deer.
cool.
this quote from the electrical and security system company, it sounds like this is with underground trenching, and that there would be a modem, which the town would have a monthly cell fee. So it's off of the cell
So-
towers.
So there's the answer. Thank you, Cindy.
You will.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Everybody knows Terry's transmission. Terry Pelletier is a friend of mine. He has cameras all over his property, and he's actually reported to the state police multiple times about people going in there and stealing from his properties, and they, for the most part, can't do anything about it. I guess my question is if we take pictures and we find that we can identify who people were that were doing the stealing, can we do anything about it once we find that out?
So let me ask you a question. They said the police couldn't do anything about it. Did they say why?
No, he just gets disgusted with it, and he says it's a waste of time and money at this point because he's got cameras, he can see what's going on, but he can't turn anybody in and report them because they won't do anything. So all I'm saying is that maybe we should look at that if we were to be able to present down the road that we've got pictures of people stealing, are they going to be able to do anything to help us?
So here's what, I was gonna say, I've talked to the state police, not about that in particular, but about riders, these young kids on our roads on their, go-karts and motorbikes. And what we were advised was to take a video. If you know who it is, give the information about who it is, where they live, whatever. I literally have stopped some kids on my road, who were racing down the road and gotten their names and addresses from them while they were doing it and that kind of thing. So the point was, they said get video or snapshots so that they have something to work with. So I'm not sure how it was pursued with the state police, that they would say that they couldn't do anything about it. If I provide them with what they need,
No,
you can do it.
and Catherine, I'm just bringing up as a point of reference saying that we should maybe, before we spend any kind of money, look at if we were to present information to the authorities, if they could do anything about it. That's all.
I'll be glad, you know what, I'll be glad to do the follow-up on that. I'll talk with Troop C.
I'd be interested as well because we have cameras up now at the fire departments because we had some vandalism, but when we did have vandalism, the officer told me the exact same thing. Wouldn't matter if you had their picture anyway. They have to catch them in the act in order to actually do anything.
Okay,
So,
I've heard similar as well from my friend who's a police officer. He says like, we just have to have a whole lot more evidence. You have got to get that. If you get the plate number,
that's what they want to do.
that's the key, but a lot of times the videos aren't. Like, especially if we do this at the park, if somebody walks in,
Yeah.
you're not getting them. Like, was that someone who drove in or walked?
You know,
You don't know.
I don't know. the
Yeah.
person.
This is-
One of the cameras is a
They drove.
license plate camera mounted on the gate,
Yeah.
pointing to,
So you get the plate, they drive through, but can you prove what they did?
they did while they
You know,
were
I mean,
there,
there's
correct?
all these things
I
that
think they're
cops
looking
gather.
at cameras, more than one.
Yes, but the license plate camera would be mounted on the gate.
Right. So that's.
But you're
why.
right,
Well, like, that's what my friend who's a police officer, he's always telling me, he's like, I just don't have enough evidence. I have some, but I can't pin this on the person. And they have to have full evidence before they can.
right, but
And
this
did they tell
was
you what
point to point
constitutes-
transmitted back to the Snapchat.
Constitutes full evidence.
Just a suggestion, we could have a
Yeah.
$100 sign that says, please make sure you lock up your belongings when you park here.
I couldn't quite hear that, I'm sorry.
Put up a sign that says, please lock up your belongings when you park here.
Well, then you just end up with a broken window and you still have a missing purse.
Well, I don't think crime should go untended, so to speak.
But
I
you'll
mean,
get
this
a
is-
better
it seems
idea.
like it's a
And
good
you
We call
time.
Troop C,
Yeah.
we'll get a better idea. It's a
And,
good.
and I'm gonna say, I want the real answer,
Yeah,
because we're just trying to figure out the best thing to do.
and, specifically a park versus like, we know we want it on the town hall. Eventually, we're gonna want it at Public Works.
And what we have here.
You know what I mean?
um,
But the park is a difficult one.
Yes,
You
at
know what I
the
mean?
town hall, we have cameras.
Yeah.
Okay, we can tell who's coming and going, and they can see who came and went, which is good. The park is a different animal. Okay. There was, something else. Oh. I think it was you, Casey, down at the park. Oh, we already, I wanna make mention of this. Down at the, park, what we did was with some ARPA funding. Was approved to put in bollards or something
The
like that,
wooden fence.
wooden fence kind of thing. With the cement
Yeah.
metal bollards, right?
No, wood, pressure treated.
So that was to put it, we're double checking. I'm trying to find out how far they wanted that to go, but what they didn't mention was coming up in front of the playscape and whatever to prevent cars from going into or kids running out of there without having to climb over a fence, so to speak. So you had mentioned something about that to me, that that was something you felt was
Yeah.
a safety issue down at the park.
Yeah, I mean, the wooden guideposts that are now creosote posts, they're horrendous. And they don't really work, because anyone can drive right through them. So we wanted to put in something that would look good at a park. Joe had already started this thing and he had gotten bids, but his bids were like really low compared to mine. So I don't know, or I don't even know if he got bids, but he put in 9,000 and all my bids are coming back 15 and 19.
Yeah, that stuff's quite expensive.
I don't know if they shot up in price or what, but,
And I don't
So-
see that one on here as an item, and that's probably because it was already approved for ARPA funding, but we don't think there's enough ARPA funding. So that's one we'll probably go back to and look at for ARPA funding. The anomaly on this thing is that we put in on the website upgrade, if you looked at the next page, you'll see the suggested funding amounts. And one of the things we put was ARPA website for the website upgrade. Now, the way we've traditionally been doing the ARPA approvals, if you will, is through special town meetings. And, so in this particular case, it could be approved through the referendum. Because everybody's looking at it, they're saying that's what it is, and it's actually more people participating in the decision making than we would have in a special town meeting about it. So, so we've listed that way on here, just so you understand that.
I didn't mention that when we put in the new playscape, what was that like 4
3
years,
years,
3 years,
3 or
4
4.
years ago? So there is not even any posts in front of that. And it's fairly close to the road, the park
Yes.
road, the park road going. So it really should get done. That was my concern.
Is there any alternative for fencing besides what?
I mean, we could continue the creosote posts and make it complete, but that's,
But a car can go through, well,
yeah, I mean, the wooden guardrails is the
Adequate.
best thing I feel in this instance.
So we're talking about funding currently, and again, I know this is a working document,
yes.
doesn't mean anything yet.
What do you
Um,
mean?
I know what it
She
is.
was colorized it, for God's sake.
CNR
We
is
don't know what we have.
1.2 million.
Yeah,
Ain't happening.
That's not happening.
We know
So,
that.
which I know everybody knows, but I was gonna ask Christina if there has been any headway as to when we would be able to determine what CNR has to work with.
No, I have not gotten an update from Sherry Susie, other than I heard that thing that they are figuring out the discrepancy, but I have not heard a final, we got it figured out and we're done. I don't know, Catherine, if you have, or Cindy.
Auditors,
bear with me. Excuse me? You did,
it would come from the auditors.
it would come from the auditors. We've given, if I understand it correctly, the auditors.
Yesterday, Sherry and Laura were asked to supply more information to the auditors. Not yesterday, last Friday.
So sorry, the reconciliation issue has been resolved?
It's not, I don't know if it was the reconciliation, but they were asked for more information last Friday?
The information I got was that there was reconciliation up to, was all figured out except for $1,500. Or, no. Yeah, like it wasn't
So,
I don't know what they had to send to the auditors last week.
all right, so.
I think the long
guess-
story short is we have not gotten an update. And I think if the audit were done, I would have heard from the auditors about it. So we're still in a holding pattern.
So it does make it difficult for this committee to kind of, we don't just say, here are the projects we think should be done, or the whatever. We also say, here's where we think the funding should come from. And we know what we're gonna have for LoSiP. Town Aid Road, we're fairly confident, I don't know.
Yeah, Town Aid Road never changes.
Yeah, so the thing we don't know is CNR. What I'd like to know is, is the audit close enough that we have a ballpark on what is conceivably gonna be left over, hopefully, from the past year, that could conceivably, if the Board of Finance were to do so, be moved into CNR. So we know what we have in there, because we don't want to deplete CNR. What we want to do is just know how much we have to work with,
Right.
so that we can plan accordingly.
Right, you also have to bear in mind that we don't know if the roof is gonna be, the fire department roof is gonna cost us anything.
Right,
So that's a blank
right.
in the spreadsheet. We also don't know what we're gonna be able to get from the non-lapsing fund.
Yes, so one of the things with the non-lapsing fund is, I forget the project. But, what was, the money that was put up by the school and the money that was put up by the town were equal.
mhm,
And the
135.
project did not cost as much as people thought.
Mhm.
And so there's monies coming back. And the Board of Finance will have to decide what you're going to do with those monies. Are you going to, for example, reimburse the educational non-lapsing fund for the monies, equally? Will you reimburse, give it to the town equally and with the school equally? Split that amount between the two, which to me seemed the right thing to do because of just how the money actually ended up coming back and where it had come from originally. And do we have enough information for the Board of Finance to make that decision at this point? Because that's separate from the audit.
We know that we've budgeted $270,000 for the oil tank.
Right.
We know that the town put up,
Mary,
what the school put up,
wrapping up.
It's not on there.
It's not
It
on
was-
there.
But my understanding was the school put up 135
Yes,
and the town put up 135.
exactly. So
And
The
the
total cost.
final price was 158 or something. I think the final tank replacement price was 158.
okay, so if you take that and what's left over, you've got $112,000.
Right,
Right, and we're working on the reimbursement.
right.
And so there's a reimbursement
Yes.
factor.
Correct. 60,
63.
And that's
something-
only
something
against the
around
158.
60%.
I think it's 63%.
Correct.
63%.
It's rough.
So we got two things. We've got the 112 divided by 2. Plus
And
we've
then-
got whatever that reimbursement is.
Right.
And I'd split that down the middle too.
Mhm.
But that would be something, that's
So
my
I
opinion.
think-
I'm not on the Board of
I
Finance.
think
so
the
my-
reimbursement by statute has to go back to the town's general fund.
But that doesn't mean that we
It
can't.
doesn't mean that you
that
can't
board,
reallocate money back into,
and that's
But
why I
not-
mentioned the
Right.
Board of Finance, because they're the ones who can make that decision.
but I don't think you have a choice where that money goes. So it would be two separate transactions. One would be accounts receivable and the other one would be an allocation to their non-lapsing fund.
Exactly.
So
And the other
thing-
one could be an allocation to the capital non-recurring.
So the other thing to consider is a line item in here, and it has to go through the Board of Education. But if one of these items that is appropriate, that the Board of Education needs or
Could use
wants,
your non-lapsing fund.
you
for
could use a
Portion.
portion of it. If it's, obviously, we always tried to do it in good faith.
Your
like,
bollards.
Yeah, whatever,
For example.
something like, okay, here's a funding source
Mhm.
for these things that we need. So what I'm saying is, if you put that line item in here, it gives kudos to the Board of Education that they're trying to help as best they can with these items.
Well, and not only that, remember, if you'll remember how that non-lapsing fund works, it's supposed to be something, whatever you're using the non-lapsing fund for, has to be something that's on the capital improvement plan, unless you get an exception.
Correct.
Correct.
But
So this-
you've still got windows on your capital improvement plan, right?
Yes.
And that's probably on your short list.
We don't see windows on here.
John,
It's
for
on for-
25, 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on
Oh, okay,
for the
sorry.
following year.
It's a-
Because we know
that would
the
be a
windows can't-
Perfect use for some of those funds.
Right.
Right, and that was the intent of those funds, was to be able to do, I would
Like-
say, more capital things,
Mhm.
kinds of things that, again, it was supposed to be on this list anyway.
Right, and it was meant for the school Board of Education to say, this is now our priority. We really would like to move forward with this, and here's a way we can fund it.
Right, and we have to all remember that we taxed for those funds.
Right.
So,
But anyway, I think
And
putting
it's
that
part of
in
the school
here
budget.
It
is,
was always my understanding, I mean, for the short time that I've been in this position, that is where we do, like, yes, I'm coming to the capital I'm coming to the capital committee, but some of those funds will be coming out of the non-lapsing fund.
or
Very nice.
could be, yes,
Mhm.
yeah,
Right,
right, yeah, and so.
because why wouldn't you,
Right,
that's that was my understanding of the purpose of the fund.
You're
and so what I'm
absolutely
getting
Fair
at though, is I think and I don't know this, but I think I know this. I think you have to get this approved by your board to say, yes, we agree that this 1% should be put up here,
And it
as
has
a
to go to the
funding
Board of
source.
Finance to be legal, right?
Correct.
yeah,
They
The
have
Board
to
of Finance has to approve
prove,
their
So at the end
recommendation.
of the year,
so it can,
that's
and
what
it can
we
it can
do
be worked with.
so two different things are happening.
after the audit.
Correct. So that's how it gets funded, but it also has to go in front of the board to be used, Board of Finance.
Exactly,
It's
you have to
both, it's
document
both
it up.
ways.
No, I know that,
Right?
yes.
So I think
And we've gone to the Board of Finance before,
Right.
asking to use the non-lapsing fund
so I
for
believe
something outside of
that you
this.
would have to get approval with your Board of Education. And then somebody would have to
Yes.
present it to the Board of Finance, but I think it should be here.
But only if it's outside of the capital projects, because the Board of Ed votes on those capital projects to be in year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
In
Well, I
fact, they've
think-
already
We vote
approved
before
it for
I
this
vote
year.
before-
Lowering voices.
Haven't they already approved, hasn't your Board of Ed already approved your capital improvement plan?
Correct.
Yeah, so that piece is done. So now it's up to this committee to decide what's gonna happen this year and what's not. And then we figure out what's gonna be covered by CNR and what's gonna be covered by the non-lapsing fund, right?
I think,
Yeah, unfortunately, you have to kind of do those last two
right,
things together.
I think what Chuck's trying to articulate, and I'll try
Mm-hmm.
to do it maybe a little more, I don't know. I think what he's trying to say is that if funds from the non-lapsing fund were to be leveraged for some of these capital projects, the way that it should happen is that your board should act on a recommendation for you to go to the Board of Finance and say, we would like to request to use X amount of dollars from our non-lapsing fund toward this year's capital projects.
Absolutely.
Which is what has happened in the last 2 years that I've been on the Board of Finance. When we approve the capital improvement plan, we talk about the funding sources and
Okay.
et cetera.
Right. Does that jive with what you're thinking? I don't think it is, so I'm wondering why.
You've already,
I can only go off of the 2 years that I've been doing this.
Yeah,
It
the
sounds
nu-
like you're doing it right.
In the way it was always explained to me in the past was when you're doing your capital projects list,
Yes.
you're going to the town, you're going to your Board of Ed. They approve what
yeah,
goes on the list. That I bring to this committee. And my understanding, maybe it's never been formally said, is that that list means that they're approving it to come out of the non-lapsing
No,
fund.
no, this committee
Only decides what
finally
projects.
approves the list. They recommend this to the Board of Selectmen.
Correct. No, and I get
Then-
that, but the Board of Ed already approved what goes on there. It's up
It's up to the Board of, I don't.
finance where the funds come from.
No, the
No,
Board of Finance, when all is said and done, make the decision about what's gonna get done. We make recommendations. That's the voice we have.
Okay.
The power we have. They decide what's finally going to be done. We have recommendations too on the funding.
Mhm.
We're giving them that information.
Correct.
And then they have to look at that. They're accountable. They have to look at the whole thing. I think what was kind of missing back when was we did not have superintendents that were as engaged as you are and weren't necessarily bringing all the stuff that needed to be done, to this committee. They didn't go through here as much as they should have.
Mhm.
I also think they didn't have their ducks in a row. And so what we'd hear about later on was, oops, here we got this, kind of thing, and we need to have that done. But again, the funding sources, I would say that the Board of Ed would certainly weigh in to go, yeah, we think that would be appropriate to take it from our non-lapsing fund. It fits what we wanted to do. It's gonna be, a capital improvement committee has looked at it and they think it's a fitting thing to put forth.
Mhm.
And then it gets in front of the Board of
so
Finance.
does
It's not real
So does the
complicated.
Board of Ed, does Dana know what's available to the non-lapsing fund? Presumably she does.
she should, yeah.
And then,
I mean, she's tracking like how much money is supposed to come back. She may not know. The town may be informed. and we'll
Yeah,
see what-
how much money is available, so
I
that,
don't think she knows how much money is available because that sits in the town.
It does.
is that dependent on the audit?
Called communication.
Correct. But
Okay.
to my knowledge, that was one of my questions I wrote down. How much money is in our non-lapsing fund?
Well, we're just gonna have to find out
Yeah,
because I'm
that's-
sure the Board of Finance is gonna wanna know.
Well, that's information that's available. I mean, that
Yeah,
has to come
I
out of the
don't-
fund. There is a number. We may not know what it is, but
Somebody
it
has
isn't,
it.
it's there.
It exists.
That
Yeah,
exists.
it's gotta be there somewhere.
Does,
Our finance department should.
We knew what
So
it was
just-
last year when we discussed the oil tank, and I don't remember that number.
Right.
But we
Okay.
knew what that number was
Right.
last year.
Well, I think
Right.
what's complicated the situation is that it's definitely in the audit, but we haven't gotten the audit yet. And so that's why. But you
Yeah.
would think that our treasurer would be able to at least give us maybe not the audited number, but an
But
estimate.
pretty close, yeah. they-
Yeah,
Actually,
and-
yeah.
So the other thing I was gonna say, Christina, is what we don't know is what's really gonna ultimately be in that fund because of what you're saying, because the audit. So there's a number that exists now that is real, and then there's the number that you guys have to decide on that, let's say they have 50,000 left over. Does that go into the 1%, the non-lapsing fund or not? And you have that choice. That's to your discretion.
Exactly.
And then, once that's whatever's in there, then you guys have the right to say, oh, this is how we'd like to
Use it.
spend it.
Right.
But you have to go back to the Board of Finance and say, this is how we want to spend it. And then they ultimately approve that.
And the thing is, we would be saying, that this is on the capital improvement plan, or it's not on there.
Correct.
And, you know, they would make an exception.
So let's say that you wanted to fund the ADA compliant entry doors out of the non-lapsing fund. The way that would happen is that you would have that conversation with your board. The board would make a motion to have you go before the Board of Finance and request $68,850 from your fund to be allocated toward that project.
Correct.
And so what you would
Yeah.
do then is write a letter to the Board of Finance and then probably get on the agenda and come to a Board of Finance meeting.
Mhm.
And then they would have to act on whether or not that, and what their action is whether or not that's a project that's been on your 5-year capital plan and complies with the guidelines that we all agreed to back 10 years ago.
Right.
So we don't wanna overcomplicate it.
Yeah, I
because
feel like we're
all-
overcomplicating things. So like on our budget calendar, we have the
Yeah.
capital improvement plan presented to the Board of Finance by the Board of Selectmen. That's on March 7th. So the last 2 years, that presentation has been made. And in that presentation has been well, here are the 3 projects for the school that's going to be funded by the non-lapsing fund. And here's what CNR is going to cover. And then the Board of Finance adopted those recommendations. So there wasn't a need to like send letters, and it was all
So
handled.
all
in
of
that
that, all
meeting.
of that is fine, all of that is fine
No.
until it's not, and that's the problem. You have to do it by
We
that
need-
regulation, because yes, I agree with you, these are things that everybody wants, there's no contention. Until there's a contention, and then it's a problem.
Bear with me. I'll just say this. Both Chuck and I know with how this particular thing gets done. I wrote the
And
stuff
I-
about the
and I-
non-lapsing fund. I'm sorry?
I was the chair when we adopted it.
Right.
So you've got 3 people who understand truly how
And
this is supposed
this
to
is the
work.
process we set up.
It's the
Correct.
process, and so you don't want to deviate from that process. And it's not that hard. For one, you can put it on here,
Right.
that it's on the capital improvement plan.
And part of that, Cindy, is you don't want the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance, you don't want them dictating how your fund is used.
Right.
Right? That's why it has to start, at the nexus of it starts with the Board of Ed.
And they can't dictate
Right,
truly,
they can't,
but you have to make your case,
right.
okay?
No, I understand all of that, but it's also kind of saying 2 things at once. It doesn't have to go through, you have to go to the Board of Finance to get it funded through the non-lapsing fund. But it better be on the capital improvement plan.
You're right. It looks
So
like chicken and
it
egg.
sounds like I have to do everything no matter what. So whether I put it on
But the-
my
but-
capital plan,
The Board of Finance has also funded things that were not on the capital
Made
plan
an
by
exception.
special exception.
no, and I get that, but anything that's on my those 3 top priorities that we have. If any of that
Does-
money comes out of the
Doesn't-
non-lapsing
doesn't-
fund,
Doesn't have to be on this capital improvement plan, it has to be on your Board of Ed 5-year plan. So you could pick something that's 3 years out.
but
I don't
everything's
remember
on
it that
here.
way, but you know what,
Everything's listed on here.
we're gonna take.
Yeah.
Which is the smart thing. to
Which
do.
is the right thing
This
to
is
do.
the, this is the right way. When it was first done, we didn't have the information that we needed
Mhm.
from the school. So that was one of the things we were trying to get.
We
And
didn't
believe
have, we
me-
didn't have a 5-year plan.
No,
Right.
it was sad. The whole thing was sad.
No, and I completely understand what you're saying.
And
I
I think
completely
I-
get it.
And I think I understand what you're saying too, is, geez, you're putting it on here, we're making the recommendation, how come you have to go and go back to your board or whatever, and then go over to the Board of Finance?
So the Board of
It's not-
Finance may say, look, you've got a huge window project coming down next year. We would rather fund that through other funding this
Right.
year.
So save it.
So save it. I mean, all I'm saying is they are supposed to make that recommendation or make that determination.
Decision, yeah.
I can't imagine them ever saying, oh, no, we want to pay for it some other way. but they have to make,
Oh, I know
they
that.
have to make that
I know
decision.
I don't have anything. I can't go to the non-lapsing fund without their. I get all of that.
Yeah,
I'm not confused about the process. I want to be clear. I'm
Yeah.
not confused about the process,
Well, it's kind of like, why do you have to do it twice?
but I also understand because I didn't have all of the numbers too. So
yeah,
I'm expected to have all the numbers for all of these projects that are on the 5-year plan.
Right.
At
But
least
I
go.
only,
Well,
yeah, but
no.
that's almost impossible to
No,
do.
that's okay.
Because
It's
we
not.
really-
It's really the.
See, we
next year.
included these
Asterisk.
stars, bullets. Basically as a heads up
Placeholders.
for what's coming.
No,
We know there are no
yeah.
prices, we know there are no project
And there
descriptions
don't
or
need
anything
to
like
be.
that.
In order for this to pass a referendum.
So this is the only important column, the rest
Yeah.
is just an FYI
Right.
column.
All right. We will get
Well-
through this.
Folks, I'm gonna
Yes.
say goodnight because I've got a dog that's telling me she has to go out. Okay?
Oh, get out. At least she tells you.
Hmm.
That's
Good
good.
night, John.
Good night.
Good night, John.
Good night, John.
Bye-bye.
All right. I mean, we should take another look at that non-lapsing.
Oh, I think that non-lasting fund thing has to be sent out again. you know.
well, and,
It should
and
actually.
the state allows for a district or a school system to give up to 2%.
Up to 2%.
But it was a big issue last year. We did have to go to the Board of Finance to ask for us to be able to give
Right.
back to the town 2% rather than just the 1%.
Right,
Because of the big projects.
Not giving back to the town to put it in your lapsing fund, non-lapsing fund.
It's giving,
It's not giving it back to the town.
No, but
putting
it's-
it
it's
an
putting it in a
earmarked
fund.
For your school.
for the school, but
So it's not truly giving it back to the town. It is putting it in, earmarking it in that fund, particularly for the school.
But
It's not for the
yes.
town to use otherwise.
so here's,
But why can't it, I guess, then maybe that's a Board of Finance decision, but we're only allowed to give 1% each year. Unless we
did
go
do-
to the Board of
We did
Finance
put 2% in 1 year.
last
I-
year because we had to ask for an exception.
Right, because
That's not a
we,
problem.
we all agreed on guidelines and 1% was the number that we agreed on.
The state had,
The 1% was what the state's guidelines were.
yes.
Correct.
It's
So-
now been changed to 2%,
Correct.
up to 2%.
We have,
So
Understand that.
that's not a huge issue by any means.
and if I remember correctly, there was, Christina, can you remind me what happened with all of that? Cause there
Yeah,
was
so what happened was, yes, traditionally it was 1%. Then, because of COVID, because schools got such an influx of funding, the state at that point, and it was like 2020 or 2021, the state said, okay, now schools can contribute up to 2% of their budget to their non-lapsing fund. We, as a Board of Finance, the Board of Ed came to us and said, we want to contribute 2% moving forward. The Board of Finance, in the end, I didn't agree with it, but the Board of Finance said, we will allow for 2% for this year only.
As
So we
opposed
made
to
a
letting it go on.
one-time exception in that particular fiscal year, which would probably have been around 2021. And then last year it came up again because it was something like 80,000 was 1% and there was an extra $5,000, and the Board of Ed requested that full 85 go into the non-lapsing fund, which would have put them a little bit over 1%. And there was some machinations and we're going to do some magic. And in the end, that $5,000 did not make it into the non-lapsing fund. It went back to the general fund.
Oh, piddling.
So from a personal standpoint, I find that absolutely infuriating, short-sighted and silly. But,
Oh,
We also understand how.
can I
well done
interject
that.
here?
go ahead, Paul.
So I actually have one more thing to say about this. There was also a provision in the write-up about this where, the, school could roll over a couple of years and go up
to
to
save money for. a
3%. I thought it was up to 3% because I had to write this.
It's all in writing somewhere.
Yeah, oh yeah, I probably have my home. to go up to 3% for that very purpose of the school. And the monies were not spent, they needed to go to a good place. Put them in there, let them apply them to their capital projects, and yeah, let them take it up to 3%. What's great about how this is designed is that should the school always come back and have like a big number left over, the Board of Finance has the authority to change what's getting put into the
Absolutely.
fund. To go, you know what? You're actually overtaxing. What you're putting in is overtaxing people. We're not gonna do that. We're going to make sure that you don't have this extra bolus as a kind of incentive for.
Right.
And
It's a
that,
judgment.
that was my interjection, was that the purpose of the limiting the percentage that goes back into the non-lapsing fund is to prevent the Board of Education from requesting more funds than they actually need and then padding.
And
the capital.
you'll never know what they could have saved.
Right.
That's the illogic with that thinking. You will never know what they could have saved because they're only gonna go up to 1% or whatever they can put in. It's silly. I'm just gonna say it.
I don't follow your logic, but I
So you don't, so you have to think about why was that thing put in place in the first place? So there wasn't a feeding frenzy at the end of every year.
Exactly.
It's not real hard to follow.
but that still happens. It happens everywhere, not just the Board of Education. So.
Well, let's just say that was taken into account when the fund was set up, and also we were not required to set up that fund.
Correct.
It was not a state mandate to do that, so we did that to be helpful to the school.
Right.
And to recognize that,
Well, we
hey,
knew we had all these things happening, right?
Yes, we
And it
did.
was-
Before all
it was
your
an
time,
opportunity.
school used to give the town back the leftover money,
exactly,
and it
exactly.
used to go into the.
So that
general
would have, and there were many other towns in the state who didn't put the non-lapsing fund into a place. They just had the school's monies over monies went back into the general fund, period. So this is just something that was basically to help the school with their capital improvement.
Right.
And that's why I still support it. I think it's a good thing, and I remember the very first time the school used it, it was to replace the heating element in the kitchen that kept the stuff on the trays warm. It was like an oven orientation kind of thing, and they needed it. And they weren't getting it any other way, and they were able to use that fund for that. So, enough on that.
Yeah, the Board of Finance has always been pretty good about it.
Yeah, and they have. And like I said, the Board of Finance has enough control over it that should the Board of Ed get out of control, they can just squeeze it back. And that hasn't happened.
And I was gonna say, I don't think that's ever happened.
No, it hasn't happened. That was just the kind of the guarantee that was built in. So here we are, we've gone through all of these. We're still looking for some more information. We're trying to march to this date of March 7th and actually March 1st to be able to provide the report, our recommendations, or for the Board of Selectmen to do the recommendations to the Board of Finance. I'm concerned because we don't know what we have in the undesignated fund. We don't know what from the audit, what can be moved over, that kind of thing. So when we go to make our recommendations, usually our recommendations are based upon some semblance of reality in terms of the monies
Right.
that we have available to us, not just throw the projects at them and go, you guys decide.
So is that something that Christina can call the auditor and get a heads up?
I've already said to the auditor in writing, these are the things that we need, including the non-lapsing fund balance and I very specifically said, these are what the items that we need, and I have not heard back. So they know what we need. I think to me, the best course of action right now is to say to Sherry Susie, give us your best estimate on what these balances are. And then we can operate with those numbers until we get the final audited numbers. That would be my recommendation.
I agree. that is the best we can do under the circumstances. In the meantime, I'm going to, reach out to Sherry Susie. I'll probably talk with Laura first to find out what the heck is missing in terms of, if it's $1,500, please. You know, is that what's really holding this up at this point? Or is there more information? It sounds like there was more information they were asking for, and I don't know what the nature of that information is.
Yeah, I mean, if there was another request for information that did not come through me, and I'm quite frankly irritated because I really made it very clear to Sean and the auditing firm that I want to know.
And I'll make it very clear with Sherry, or we will, that if the auditing firm is making these requests of them, they are to forward them to you.
Yeah.
So you see everything. So if the auditing firm doesn't think to put you on a copy or doesn't want to for whatever reason, you'll at least get what we're getting. And also, you know, we need to make sure that we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing on our end to get it cleared up. So, all right. There's a part of me that doesn't know where to go next with this, like our next meeting, but we have a date we're marching to. And we've got to have this all ready and decided by us before March 1st.
Yeah, so I think you have to have CNR determined by then.
Well, we're gonna try and do the rough.
We have to do
Right.
that, we have to get on the people who give us complete information
Yes. That's been
and get
so
the
frustrating.
information and what course of action do you want to take if we don't get the information? Wipe
Right.
it off the list?
There's the part of me that's a black and white, is yes or no. It's kind of like, and being a gatekeeper. It's like, if you can't get us the information, why do we have it on the list?
If you can't get us within 2 months. Because
They were asked for a December 4th.
fourth,
Right, so there's a part of me that would say that I think this whole capital process needs to definitely be spread out over a longer course. Meaning it needs to start like, well, first
No,
off, I
it
think
needs to
if
be
you,
all year
yeah,
long.
that's where I was going. I agree. It has to be an all year long, like, if you have this capital need, it doesn't always happen on December 4th. It could have
Right.
happened on April 3rd.
right,
And you develop your information, because guess what's coming in December sometime is a request.
Correct. The other part of it, and then also make sure those estimates are current.
And that's department heads. That's whoever's the head of, whatever,
And-
they have to understand
and
that.
usually, yes, we're in a position usually where we know that something is gonna come up off kilter. So we can usually adjust for it.
Right.
I'm afraid, we sent the request out December 4th. If I send a request out September 4th, do you think I'm gonna get any more answers in a
Right.
more timely manner?
Right.
No, it'll just get lost.
I think that this board should be meeting quarterly. Because I think that this board should be kept abreast of how those projects are going, for one. What's our progress? What are the issues? Have we seen anything else come up? And then as you get to the fourth quarter, then you have let's get real here with some of these estimates on what we need going forward. But I think that at least progress updates should be what's talked about. And then we're not doing this bunched up process at the end of the year carrying over, God help us, into January when we're trying to do the budget stuff as well.
Right. Christina, does that make sense to you?
A quarterly meeting for the capital improvement committee?
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense. Absolutely.
I just.
And then we can also work on an inventory of all the equipment that the town and the school owns. That would be on my list of projects for this committee.
We do have an inventory.
We have inventory.
And we actually were confirming some of the inventory down at Public Works. He's got the list and he's working through it. It's got all
What kind of
the machinery
inventory?
and ages and.
What are you
I would
looking
love
for?
it. I would love to see a copy of it. I've just never seen it. It would be great to share that.
What are you looking for? You're looking for equipment, property?
Everything?
Equipment is my big question, just because it comes up where it's like, oh, we need a new truck and the old one. It's hard to keep track because I don't see these physical things all the time.
And
So a
we can send
spreadsheet-
you- we can send you the inventory that Karma keeps, that the insurance company keeps, because they insure all our equipment.
Right,
That'd be great.
very good.
Good.
Okay, and so our next meeting,
You send out an invitation and I will say yes.
well, I love that about you. I haven't heard that in years. Okay, so again, we're marching to this date, and I don't have my calendar in front of me, yes, I do. And Wednesday nights are best?
Sure.
You're good to your word, good for your word, to your word. True to your word, sorry. So today's the 7th, and then we have the 14th, and then we have the 21st, and then we have the 28th. And then incredibly
I'm
enough,
busy on the 14th.
yes, we are all busy on the 14th. So if we were to meet, let's just say we were gonna meet on the 21st, then we have to make basically,
We had a board of selectmen last year on the 14th. And they knew it when they set the meeting.
so if we meet on the 21st, which allows them hopefully enough time to get the rest of it to us, we've already gone through this. So we get the gist of it at least, and then, try to see if we can get to our decision making then, and if not then on the 28th, and all we have is 2 days, less than 2 days to get it to the Board of Finance. But you know what? Let me stop and think about this, because this committee has to present to the Board of Selectmen. So we need to be very focused.
So you need to do the 21st, and then we have to have a special
On the
selectmen's
26th,
meeting
on the 26th.
on sometime to give me enough time to get budget books or the budget stuff. And Sherry to get budget stuff to the Board of Finance.
Right, I treat the capital improvement plan as its own animal, and the general government budget is another, because they are,
But they're
and so
intertwined.
what,
Right.
well, only intertwined in that we're presenting that as part of the overall spending plan. And by that time, we won't have the E.O. Smith's numbers, but we'll have some of their first numbers. The school will be working on theirs. I can't remember if you present before we do.
We're presenting February 22nd.
Yes.
Poor puppies. Okay, so we will know that. And when I look at this, the Board of Finance looks at the total spending plan. I'm a little more sectioned out. The Board of Selectmen, there would be something where the Board of Selectmen would make recommendations on, and even make recommendations for the school's plan. Not our turf. Okay, the school makes their own case, the Board of Finance makes their own decision about that. In terms of the general government stuff, we do that.
Yeah.
And I realize that, when you're looking at an overall spending plan for the town, everybody cares. Everybody bears a piece of the responsibility, but I don't see the Board of Selectmen being accountable for what the school puts forward or having a say in what they put forward. I don't, and I know traditionally they did. I don't know if they did over the last couple of years, but I know they certainly did before. And I know she disagrees. So, we all care about the town, but they're having to make their case, and the Board of Finance is the one who makes the decision.
Yep.
And then finally the voters do.
Yep.
So, yes. Okay, so we're gonna aim for the 21st.
Yeah.
Please, and I'm sorry I kept you so late. And I'm sorry I irritated her. So.
Who got irritated? I'm not irritated. It's not me, right?
No, not you.
No.
Hopefully you're fine, and
All is good, Christina.
and for all the people who were in the room tonight and on here, I just think it's the best group of people to have talking this through, because look how we talk.
All right.
Okay? We bring up exactly what we're thinking. We're not couching it. We're not politicizing it. It's just trying to get all the information together and make good decisions. And Jim, I can't thank you enough for your
Absolutely.
advice.
Congressionally directed spending is what Winchester used to get their salt shed.
Congressionally directed spending.
And I just want everyone, I have a loud voice. And when I'm trying to get my point across, my voice gets louder. Does not mean I'm angry.
Mine does too.
I just get louder because I feel like I'm from a large family
Me too.
and I was the youngest.
I was the oldest.
So, and I was the only girl, so I had to be loud.
I get loud because I get loud.
So I do have a bounding
You know
voice.
what,
I'm told that often.
You know what it is? We're impassioned. That's
Right.
all it
Well,
is.
we all are, and I agree. And we're just, and I think we're all trying to understand each other.
And not only that, I think all of us feel the pressure of, hey, we gotta get to some decisions here, and we, in a sense, don't have all the information we need. And dealing with the unknown is really uncomfortable.
To answer your question about what do we do with the ones that don't have complete information,
Yeah, what do you
I
think?
know how I strongly feel.
Well, that's how I tend to be.
But-
Well,
what
then
do you,
that's
what do you
that's
miss,
the,
other than Cindy being at the mercy of one company, what are you missing?
Right, I agree, but what we are missing, we're missing, and so you just don't consider it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a piece that we can't not consider because it's tied to the school group.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Okay, so.
But I think your
and
suggestion
if it
is,
was on the list, I mean, I went back years.
Right,
I went back before 2020. AC and Harry, I understand that there was conversations, but they're on no list.
right.
so the only list I think air conditioners should be on is, we talked about mini splits for classroom.
Mini splits, yes, those were on the list, but I can't even. I don't feel it is responsible to go to mini splits when we don't even have windows
No, I agree.
that will hold the air in the
I
building.
think, yeah, I'm surprised we haven't gotten to the windows yet.
Right.
And but it's one of those
Laughter
projects that we
from
keep
big
pushing
people?
off and pushing off.
We
and
do,
pushing off.
because it's an unknown.
Right.
It's a large unknown because we do not know what the abatement
Yeah,
piece of
that
it
piece
will
is gonna
be.
be ugly.
Right,
And it seems like too, sometimes people get so caught up in what they talked about before and this and this and this, that they all, kind of lost common sense about the sequence that things should be done in. And, because they've been focused on this and that's on the list and you gotta go do that and whatever. And maybe not have all the right people looking at it to put it all together as, this should be done as a package. So anyway, a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
I don't vote here, so
No, but you're real
I'm
valuable.
not officially on this committee this year.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, very, very helpful.
Yep.
And I think your municipal experiences carrying forward,
Listen, it would be irresponsible of me not to share what I know with the community that I live in.
exactly. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Good to see you.
Christina, I sent you an email.
Professionally directed.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
I